Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pointless Top 10 compilation video. This is all about creepy stuff in World of Warcraft, although I did include some autumnal things because of Halloween, you know what I mean, like farms and scarecrows, pumpkins and stuff like that, as well as things that could be considered creepy in an unusual sense, like unusual mobs or houses in the middle of nowhere, so enjoy. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Pointless Top 10, a show where we make top 10 lists of pointless things. Why are we flying by his pointless statue in Booty Bay? Because inside pointless things are treasure. Let's begin. 10. Number 10 are the spectral bovines and Bessie the ghost cow located at the chapel yard in Netherstorm. And I mean, when you think about it, I don't think there's many games that actually have ghost cows, so how could I not put ghost cows on this list? And then there's Bessie, who is part of the quest Needs More Cowbell, which is a reference to the old Saturday Night Live internet meme of the, needs more cowbell. And so you use Bessie's cowbell and ring it to lead her back to her owner, which, when you think about it, it's a little surreal. You're leading a ghost cow back to her ghost owner. Although I guess that's better than leading the ghost cow back to the not ghost owner, or vice versa. I don't know. You know what? It actually makes sense now that I think about it. Also, if you're curious as to why there's ghosts here, there's actually numerous possibilities. One was Draenor being ripped apart when Ner'zhul was opening too many portals. One was a bunch of orc attacks, and the other one was there's a mana bomb set off by Prince Kael'thas. So this is actually a terrible place to have lived. But still, you know what? It's got ghost cows, and that's pretty cool, so that's why it's number 10. 9. Number 9 are the ghosts of the Indule Village, I think that's how you say it, which is a Tuskarr village found northwest of Moakai Harbor in Dragonblight. And the backstory behind these guys is actually pretty sad. So Lake Indule is located in the middle of Indule Village, and it was from this lake that the magic leaked out due to the blue dragon's actions west of the lake that killed most of the Kalawak inhabitants and made the others deranged. So these Tuskarr were essentially just a byproduct of all the blue dragon arcane magic stuff going on all around them, and then they got caught up in the crossfire of the Nexus Wars and all that stuff, and then their village got destroyed. So I think what's so sad about this place is not only do you have these ghosts that are wandering around acting as if nothing happened, right? But then you also have the Tuskarr that lived through the explosions and the chaotic magic, and they're just walking around essentially going insane because of what they've lived through. So it's just really sad, and I feel like not enough people talk about this place in Warcraft history, so that's why the Ghosts of Indule Village are number 9. 8. Number 8 is Franklorn Forgerite, and Franklorn Forgerite is a ghost that is in Blackrock Mountain that can only be seen while in ghost form. And I'm sure many people remember him from doing Molten Core or Blackrock Depths, and you died and you'd run back and you'd see him and you'd be like, whoa, that's a ghost guy. And he was a celebrated architect of the Dark Iron clan and oversaw the construction of the Stonerot Dam and much of Blackrock Depths. And so if you've ever taken the tunnels from Searing Gorge to Loch Modan with the Stonerot Pass, or you've seen the Stonerot Dam with those big dwarven heads on it, that's all from this guy. He was also responsible for Blackrock Spire. So I mean, this dude literally designed like almost everything in Blackrock Mountain. And on top of all that, he's actually a reference to Frank Lloyd Wright, or at least he was inspired from Frank Lloyd Wright, who was the famous American architect. And so not only is Franklorn Forgerite remembered for just being a ghost that you'd run by when you were dead in Blackrock Mountain, but he's also remembered for all the things he built in World of Warcraft. And so that's why number 8. 7. Number 7 is Ophelia Montag, and Ophelia is the ghost banker located in the Undercity. And Ophelia stands next to the other bankers who she's likely related to. There's Randolph Montag, Mortimer Montag, and William Montag. And since all of them are clearly related, it is likely that the Montags were a rich banking family, or I guess still are. And there's actually a Calvin Montag as well, located in Deathnell, which is the undead starting area, and he tries to con adventurers into delivering a letter for him for free. And Calvin Montag is actually a rogue, so it says here that taking names from Shakespeare's works, it's possible that they are a family of bankers, with Calvin being the black sheep that became a rogue. And I looked it up because I was like, what story is this from? And apparently it's Romeo and Juliet. I legit didn't even realize that Romeo's father is Lord Montag and his mother is Lady Montag. I also can't even remember the last time I read or saw anything about Romeo and Juliet, so that's probably also why I can't remember. But either way, I saw a lot of people that talked about remembering Ophelia Montag, the ghost banker, so I wanted to put her on the list, and that's why She's number 7. 6. Number 6 are the ghostly citizens of Stratholme, and the ghostly citizens are human ghosts located in Stratholme that perished when the city was destroyed by Arthas. However, they don't actually seem to realize that they're dead. And I'm not gonna lie, one of the main reasons I included these ghosts is because when you emote to them with either /dance or /wave or /rude, they actually react to the emote. So obviously with /dance, they will dance with you, and then if you do /wave, they will wave at you, but if you do /rude, they will actually punch you in the face and knock you down and then be like, bleh. There's also a dwarf that has a quest to free the souls of these ghostly citizens with his blaster, and his name is Egan, and it's a reference to Egon Spengler from the Ghostbuster franchise. I also wanted to mention that it seems that a lot of the ghosts in World of Warcraft seem to have died in a very chaotic or extreme way, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, they should just go get resurrected or whatever in the game, right? But I feel like that's the whole point, is like they died in such a terrible way that now they're just kind of lost in the world, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but that's kind of what I've noticed for a lot of them. So that's why the ghostly citizens of Stratholme are number 6. 5. Number 5 are the ghosts located at the Briny Barnacle Inn, located at Admiral Taylor's garrison in the spires of Iraq. And the inn's patrons were slaughtered by the treacherous Watch Commander Branson and turned into spectral ghosts by his master, the necromancer Ephial. Branson and the bodies of his victims can be found down in the cellar. And if you talk to Alice Finn, she says, I remember now, Watch Commander Branson told us to stay in the inn. He said we'd be safe here, and then that thing broke through and slaughtered everyone. And so I guess the necromancer probably put a curse or a spell onto Watch Commander Branson, and he turned into the skeleton, and then he killed everybody after, you know, telling him like, get inside, I'll protect you. And then he was actually the one that killed him. I think that's what it is. I don't know. I was trying to piece this all together, but I couldn't really find too much on it. But I'm not gonna lie, the reason I love this place so much is everybody's just having a good time. They're drinking, they're dancing. There's that gnome in the hat, and he's just dancing on a chair. Like, for being ghosts, they're just really having a good time, and I thought that was really fun, so that's why the Briny Barnacle ghosts are number 5. 4. Number 4 are the ghosts at the Dark Moon Fair, and I actually covered this over in Pointless Top 10 Dark Moon Fair oddities and things. You go watch that one at the end of the video, but theory is that Rona Greenteeth killed a lot of these people that are now ghosts on the island, and she's the NPC that sells various cannibalistic-esque dishes. I put a list of them up on the screen right there so you can kind of piece together everything. And some of the ghosts are Brendan Paulson, who's this kid that Silas Darkmoon met at Strom 1,200 years ago, and his father tried to kill him, and he joined the fair to escape his family, but then he ends up dying at the Dark Moon Fair. There's Cythera Wellspun, who went looking for firewood, and she saw something in the bush and then blacked out. There's Zazla, who survived one of the many Dark Moon Fair shipwrecks around the island, and then he ended up getting killed. There's Arlen Sherhoof, who talks about never leaving his camp and watching over his camp, so I think that's kind of like what we talked about earlier. He had this kind of really terrifying death, and now he's kind of reliving these terrible memories over and over, and his spirit's trapped here. And then there's Cup Coincare, who worked at the fair trying to repay his debt to Silas, but then died when he tried to leave. And so the ghosts at the Dark Moon Fair have some pretty sad backstories, and they kind of shed some light on the weird and mysterious nature of the Dark Moon Fair. And that's why they're number 4. 3. Number 3 is Anara, and Anara is a Kyrian spirit healer, so she's technically not a ghost, but I'm counting it just because she's pretty much like a ghost, alright? This is a Pointless Top 10. I can do whatever I want. And so you have to go on a quest to convince Azure Ghost to come back to the world of the living. And so you talk to Joanna, and she's like, oh yeah, just take the portal. It'll take you right to him. And you take it, and it drops you and kills you, which technically does take you to them. And so he's pretty much like, hey, you know what? I'm not coming back. I met somebody. And you're just like, wait, who? There's no dragons here. And he's like, don't be ridiculous. She's standing right there. And then he's like, she has a name, you know, Anara. You know how many times her and her sisters have brought you back to life? But after some more dialogue, you eventually do convince Azure Ghost to leave the spirit realm. And he's like, all right, I'll go with you. And then Anara's like, hey, you know what? This will be fine. I know this was going to be temporary anyway. It's all good. And so, yeah, I think Anara is one of the only named spirit healers in the game, and I don't know where else I was going to include her in a Pointless Top 10, and I was like, you know what? I may as well put her in Ghost, so that's why Anara is number 3. Ooh. Number 2 is Pamela Redpath, and I feel like everybody knows Pamela Redpath. I think she is really one of the most well-known ghosts in World of Warcraft. She is a quest giver located at Darrowshire in the Eastern Plaguelands, and she is the youngest daughter of Joseph Redpath, who was killed at the Battle of Darrowshire. And back in Classic WoW, you have to go and get the pieces of her doll. There's the head and the left side and the right side, and then you put the doll back together for her. But in Cataclysm, they actually changed it so you help Joseph Redpath's ghost like fight off all the Darrowshire stuff, and then he goes and greets Pamela, and she's like, I heard him whisper to me, yay! And then she makes you some tea. You can also go to the Culling of Stratholme dungeon in the Caverns of Time, and you can find Pamela and her dad alive in a building. But whether you prefer the classic quests or the Cataclysm quests or whatever it might be, I think it doesn't matter. Pamela Redpath is definitely one of the most well-known ghosts in World of Warcraft, and so I had to put her on this list, and that's why she's number 2. And number 1 is First Mate Fitzsimmons, and First Mate Fitzsimmons is a human quest giver located outside Deepwater Tavern in Menethil Harbor. And if you talk to him, he says he was once first mate on the Wave Mistress, and that when he was on his ship, they were attacked by red dragons controlled by orcs. His fleet was burned and sunk off the coast, and he was the sole survivor of those poor vessels. And then he asks you to go get his mead so that he can get drunk and forget about it. So then you bring him his alcohol, he starts drinking it, and then he's like, I'm the sole survivor of the ill-fated Third Fleet of Kulturas wrecked off the coast to the north. One of our ships was hidden a great and terrible treasure, and the eerie power of it keeps the souls of my brothers trapped within the ship's rotting hulls. And so he says he's haunted by them day and night, and First Mate Snellig calls for him. So he wants you to go talk to the First Mate Snellig at the shipwrecks. And so you go and talk to him, and he's just like, the sailors of the Third Fleet are damned forever, cursed to wander these shores in agony. Fitzsimmons' anguish is tied to us. So long as we suffer, there can be no rest for him either. And so he wants you to end the suffering and kill a bunch of the ghosts. And so you go and you kill a bunch of the pirates, but it's still not enough. And he says Captain Holindor damned us all to covet a forbidden artifact, the Eye of Paleth. His spirit still covets it, standing guard over the strongbox of his old ship. Defeat the captain, claim his key, and spirit the Eye of Paleth far from this place. And so you go and do all that, you kill the captain, you get everything, and then you open it, and it's the Eye of Paleth. And opening the chest reveals a blackened orb pulsing with an eerie light. And so it wants you to bring the cursed Eye of Paleth to a priest in Menethil Harbor. But here's the creepy part. When you go to this priest, he says, the Eye of Paleth. You say Fitzsimmons sent you out. By the light, not again. Fitzsimmons is dead, lass. You've not the first to come to me like this either. And then when you go back out to look for First Mate Fitzsimmons, he's gone. He's just not there anymore. And so out of all the ghosts, I think this is the creepiest one, because you don't realize you're talking to a ghost until everything's over and he's gone. And I just thought that was really creepy. And so that's why First Mate Fitzsimmons is number 1. 10. Number 10 are the panicked children, and that may be the first time anyone's ever said that in a top 10 list, maybe ever. But these are really creepy because these kids are like looking for their parents, and I guess this is when the Horde has invaded Stormsong Valley. And their parents are literally just strung up to the buildings because they got hit by arrows and stuff. And they're saying quotes like, I need to find my friends. Why aren't you moving? I'm scared. Mommy said the soldiers always kept the bad guys away. Where did the soldiers go? Which is really creepy. I forgot this was even in the game. This is one of those things like I think I just glanced over, or when I did this, I was like, what the shit? And then I just kept moving along. This is actually insane that this is in World of Warcraft. Like, some people are like, oh, can we bring back the World of Warcraft? Right now it's all ponies and candy and fairies and whatever. Like, literally a couple expansions ago, we have this kid crying about his mom or dad or whatever pinned to a post. And they're like, you could put this in vanilla WoW. People would be like, this is one of the most hardcore things in the game. Because it's BFA, people are like, oh, it's BFA. Either way, this shit's creepy, and that's why it's number 10. 9. Number 9 is Interrogator Vicious, and Interrogator Vicious is the human found in the Scarlet Monastery graveyard that says things such as, I'll rip the secrets from your flesh. Naughty secrets. Tell me everything. Which is actually, I think, the main reason people remember this guy. Because you'd get there and you'd be like, dude, what is this guy saying? Here's a little background on him. James Vicious, which I think is a play on words for like vicious, right? It's vicious, but vicious, whatever, is the Scarlet Crusade's lead interrogator at the Scarlet Monastery. He enjoys torturing any captured undead and takes great pride in his work. He's known for his unrelenting sadism, cruel expertise, and high-pitched voice. Interrogator Vicious has tortured Vorel Senguts for weeks. Vicious took Sengut's wedding ring and gave it to his own wife, Nancy Vicious. Nancy lives with Grandpa Vicious, who presumably is James' father, although it's not mentioned, at a cottage on the eastern coast of Lordamere Lake in the Alterac Mountains. I also love how his dad's just named Grandpa Vicious. Like, he doesn't have a name like Joe Vicious or something. He's just Grandpa Vicious. But aside from all that, this guy's one of the most notorious creepy NPCs in World of Warcraft, and that's why he's number 9. Or is the real torturer the rat? Dun, dun, dun. The rat probably does help him, actually. 8. Number 8 is Dr. Weevil, and Dr. Weevil's an elite undead gnome located on Alcaz Island in Dustwallow Marsh. He has several minions of Weevil scattered around his compound, and all of which are apparently being mind-controlled by him. He actually used to be alive, but when he died, the second that Dr. Weevil's heart stopped, his ultimate plan was put into motion. After adventurers looted his body, a yellow fluid slowly filled his veins, and jumper cables were implanted to shock him back to life. Was this undeath? Alchemical engineering? No one's quite sure, but it left him sallow-skinned and over 4 times as evil as before. That's according to the Return to Alcaz Isle in patch 7.1. Dr. Weevil is also clearly a reference to Dr. Evil from Austin Powers. But one of the creepy things that I haven't mentioned yet is Dr. Weevil used to have a thing where if you fought him solo, he would mind control you, and you'd have to stand near his bedside for like 2 minutes, and you just couldn't move. And a lot of times you'd get stuck in this mind control loop, so you'd have to like invite a friend to come help you get out of it, or you'd have to do this in a group, so that didn't happen. Imagine just fighting this guy, you didn't even know that, and then all of a sudden you're mind controlled, you just have to stand there, and you're like, what do I do? So that was the thing that really made me consider putting Dr. Weevil on this list, and that's why he's number 8. 7. Number 7 is Thaddeus. Thaddeus is the 4th and final boss of the Construct Quarter in Naxxramas, and he is a large flesh titan creature thing. Apparently, he has been pieced together from the flesh of the innocent women and children. This massive abomination dwells in one of Naxxramas' experimental laboratories, flanked by huge 2 wights, Stalag and Fugan. Powerful bolts of electricity arc through the laboratory, supercharging Thaddeus and his white minions, and it is said that the souls contained in Thaddeus are fused together, eternally bound within that foul prison of flesh. One of the creepiest things to me is once you kill Thaddeus, he's like, "Thank you," which to me shows that he was already extremely distraught and in pain or whatever's going on inside that body. The other creepy thing is that if you're in the lower part of Naxxramas, you'll hear these screams in the background, kind of these faint cries that are just like, "Stop, make it stop, help me." And after you kill Thaddeus, I believe those go away. So those must have been the souls and stuff trapped in Thaddeus. So I guess in a way it's actually good that you kill him, because then everybody, I guess, is at peace now, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how this works, but either way, it's pretty messed up. And that's why Thaddeus is number 7. 6. Number 6 is Chal, and Chal is a mysterious shapeshifter disguised as a female troll in Nagrand. She's also an alternate Nagrand as well, which is where you find out a lot more about Chal. So initially in the Outland, you would go there and Chal's just at a daycare, right? Being like, "Hey, the babies are sleeping, you gotta keep it down." And you're like, oh, she's like a daycare person, right? But then you see like some skeletons scattered around and stuff, and you're like, this is a little weird. But in the alternate Draenor, there is an orc named Garrock, and he knew her as a child, but he says even as the years have gone on and he has aged into an old man, Chal has remained young and beautiful. So he's concerned that Chal had something to do with the death of his wife, and sends the adventurer to investigate. Then when you go confront Chal, she says, "I remember her, she was as you see me now, until I drained the life from her wretched body." And then she transforms actually into her current troll form. And she also says, "I will devour you." So pretty clear that she is eating people to stay young, and she's probably eating all of the babies at the daycare back in Nagrand. So I actually think they did a good job tying together the alternate Draenor version and the Outland version. I think it's pretty cool, but she is very weird and creepy. And actually there's a lot of like weird lore implications. Like, is she a demon? Is she like some weird thing? Like, you don't really know what she is. She's a shapeshifter clearly, but like, who knows what that even means, right? Is she like some void creature? I don't know, but what I do know is she's number 6. 5. Number 5 are the Children of Goldshire, and the Children of Goldshire are 6 human children that walk on the path from Goldshire to Stormwind City. But the main thing is that they go to an empty house and go to the 2nd floor and form a pentagram there, and they just stand around remaining silent and not moving. You can also hear some creepy sounds, and you'll also hear Cthulhu, the old god, being like, "You will die which is pretty freaky. They also do this every day at 7 a.m. server time, which I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was kind of dumb. I'm like, why aren't they doing this at like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., right? That feels like it would be a lot creepier. Like 7 a.m., like, oh, the sun's coming up. Let's go to the pentagram. Like, I don't know. What do you do that at like 2 a.m.? I don't know. I just thought that was dumb. Either way, this is actually a reference to a bunch of Blizzard employees. So according to John Stats, who I actually interviewed in a Fishing with Crendor back in the day, the children's geometric formation was not meant to be satanic at all. Players saw it as a pentagram, but it was just a function of the children simply being centered on Cameron and thus forming a circle. The children are actually meant to be a reference to Blizzard's dungeon department employees, and then they added in all the creepy sounds and stuff like that. But I mean, I think the funny part here is that everybody was like, dude, this is creepy, this is weird, why is this in the game? But it's one of the reasons I wanted to put the children of Goldshire on this list, because in a bunch of other videos, they consider these kids like one of the creepiest things in WoW, but really behind the scenes, this was just a big inside joke. And I think that's kind of funny, and that's why it's number 5. Number 4 is Stalvin Mistmantle, and Stalvin is an undead human with a bloodied past. So this whole quest begins at Madam Eva, who's a human quest giver located in Darkshire in Duskwood, and she is like, I sense a great disturbance through my veins. A name came to me, Stalvin. I imagine that's how she talks. Every creepy old lady has to sound like that. Cause I mean, what if she had like a Valley Girl accent? It'd probably be a little weirder. But anyway, you go on this big quest train, you gather all these little breadcrumb things, these notes and letters from all over, and you learn that Stalvin is actually this creepy tutor guy that had an infatuation with a younger woman named Taloa, which is an anagram for Lolita, which is a reference to the novel Lolita. Taloa gives Talvin a flower, and he interprets this as a romantic gesture, but she's clearly just being nice to him, and compares him to an old uncle, which makes him go crazy, and apparently murders her, her fiance, and potentially her family, but definitely both of them, with an axe. And you can actually get that axe. It's called Stalvin's Reaper, and it's a world drop from monsters in the 33 to 40 range. In his notes, he claims that the blood he'd spilled paled in comparison to the tears he shed. He then carefully hid the bodies and retreated back to his home northeast of Darkshire and remained there until the darkness crept into him and consumed him. He now resides in Manor Mistmantle, lonely and mad, hungering for more revenge on any person who dares come near. I think one of the reasons people love this quest is it really does make you feel like you're a detective trying to figure out a mystery, like you're trying to collect all these notes and put everything together, and it really does breadcrumb questing well, where you have to go all over, and you know, back when you're doing it and you're not paying attention to the story, you're like, oh, I gotta go over here and over there, but when you're actually paying attention to the story, you're like, wow, I need to go over here and find this, and like, what's this do, right? And you start piecing everything together, and I think it's really well done. Now, Stalvin himself is creepy as shit. And very weird. At the end of the day, you end up killing Stalvin and you go back to Madam Eva and she's like, good job, Stalvin's dead and it's over or whatever. And then that's it. That's the quest. But overall, Stalvin's creepy, and that's why he's number 4. Number 3 is Abercrombie and Stitches. And Abercrombie is a hermit who's also known as the Embalmer, and Stitches, as you probably all know, is Stitches. And I think maybe hearing this out loud, you might realize the reference of Abercrombie and Fitch, Abercrombie and Stitches, right? You get it? Haha. Blizzard loves their references, all right? So Abercrombie was a kindly alchemist and citizen of Raven Hill. He was driven mad by the death of his wife, Eliza. To restore her, he used dark magic to place his own heart within the bosom of his dead spouse. What the shit? This revived Eliza, but it cursed her with a hunger for human flesh, forcing the embalmer to keep her buried. And of course, you can go out back and find her in her grave, and she's like, wait, you aren't my husband, but he must have sent you, and you look delicious. And you kill her and get her heart, which is his heart. The crazy part with this quest is you actually get him a bunch of ingredients and you aid him in creating Stitches without even knowing it. And then everyone's like, oh my God, what did you do? And you're like, I don't know, I was just doing a quest. And they're just like, you helped them create Stitches. Oh my God. And so Abercrombie essentially creates Stitches as a gift for the mayor of Darkshire and sends him to terrorize the town. But then you get his heart, you stop Stitches, and you save the day. I love the aspect of helping this mad scientist, but then it turns out that you're actually helping him to do something bad without even know it. I just think that's pretty fun. So that's why Abercrombie and Stitches our number 3. Ooh. Number 2 is Rawl the Gluttonous and the Weird Pig Beastmen. So Rawl the Gluttonous is the third boss of Waycrest Manor, and according to the adventure guide, Rawl the Gluttonous was once the main chef for the Waycrests. Now his kitchen is a chamber of horrors where he has been serving portions of himself to the damned guests that haunt these halls. So when I read this, I was like, hold on. He is serving portions of himself? And I remember doing this boss fight back in BFA, but I don't remember that part of it. And now that I've realized that, I was like, what is going on? He's literally serving parts of himself. That is insane. And he's just this big, like, gluttonous pig man, and he's just got a bunch of garbage all around him, and he's really creepy. Like, I can't believe I didn't think of this guy until now. I was like looking through everything, and I was like, oh my god, this guy has to be on the list. There's like weird demon pigs all around. There's like a couple beastmen looking guys back there. And then there's the actual beastmen on the outside, and they're just really freaky looking. I tried to look up any lore behind it, and it said beastmen are grotesque beings found in Drustvar that resemble beast, mostly pig hybrids. They appear to be stitched together out of corpses of humans and animals, while Rawl the Gluttonous used to be a human who was transformed by magic. But honestly, looking at some of these half-human, half-animal hybrid things it's freaky. Like, it gives you those uncanny valley vibes, you know what I mean? I'm just like, ugh. There's like a weird pig skeleton and stuff too. Like, oh my god, some of this stuff, I didn't even realize this was in the game. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even think I did some of these quests, but it is weird. Also, Rawl the Gluttonous is a reference to the Swine Prince boss from Darkest Dungeon, and the Servant Splitter item he drops is a direct reference to the game. So there you go. A little bit of reference knowledge, a little bit of weird stuff, and a lot of, I don't know what's going on. And that's why this is number 2. And number 1 is Abby Lewis. And oh my god, is this kid just the weirdest thing in World of Warcraft. This is easily the creepiest thing in World of Warcraft. Maybe the most just unsettling thing in World of Warcraft. Like, if you do this quest, you literally sacrifice a cat. Again, referencing back to people like, WoW has become fairies and, you know, ponies and stuff. You sacrifice a cat. This shit is insane, man. So Abby's just skipping around. She's just singing her song, which is, our poor little village is dead. All the people have gone stiff or fled. There is no more noise except me and my toys, just like the dark birdie said. So she's just singing nursery rhymes about how people are dead and dark birds talk to her. Then she has a tea party where she invites Larry the raptor, her cat, and stuffed animals and everything. She sacrifices the cat. She's insane. Like, she takes you around the town. She shows you everybody that's like dead. She's like, everybody said Mr. Hayes' heart was true, but it must have been the biggest for sacrificing as well. Like, she just says crazy shit like that. And you just go around and she like shows you all these dead people, and then you go to her like sacrificial tea party, and that's it. It's crazy. In fact, I wish Abby Lewis was a raid boss so that we could actually fight her, because I would be motivated. Because, like, she has a much better backstory of evil than, like, the jailer and some people we fought against, right? Like, an Abby Lewis expansion in Shadowlands would have made much more sense than the jailer. So, I also, listen, I always take my shots at the jailer whenever I can. So, either way, that's why Abby Lewis is number 1. 10. Number 10 is Deadwind Pass. And I know a lot of people always talk about the Karazhan Crypts, and they're like, dude, Karazhan Crypts, the creepiest places ever, the Karazhan Crypts. I'm gonna tell you right now, they are not on this list. And that is because the Deadwind Pass, I think, is just really underrated. Like, the Deadwind Pass is genuinely really creepy. There's, like, big stone arches and bridges with a bunch of spiders on them. There's, like, weird dead people hanging from the trees. There's, like, campsites that just don't have anybody at them. Although I think this one has some quests tied into it because there's, like, people questing here and stuff like that. There's also this creepy church where it looks like 2 people are buried here. I don't know if there's any lore behind why these 2 people are here, or if these are just, like, I don't know, caskets or something, but this is like genuinely a really creepy zone, and it's a really tiny zone. Obviously Karazhan is here as well, but like the Deadwind Pass is genuinely a creepy zone. It's one of the smaller zones. There's not really much to do here outside of Karazhan and, you know, the Karazhan Crypts and stuff, but it's creepy, and so I decided to put it on the list and give it the attention it deserves, and that's why the Deadwind Pass is number 10. 9. Number 9 is this farm in Drustvar where numerous pigs have been infected by some sort of fungal spell or disease or witchcraft. I don't know what it is, but it's genuinely pretty freaky. And it's one of the things where Drustvar has a lot of stuff that's creepy. Like, there's numerous places in Drustvar I could have put on this list, but there's just something about this one that just freaks me out, right? I don't know if it's just the pigs that are already dead and they just have like the plants and fungus and mushrooms growing out of them. So, I mean, there's numerous other places in World of Warcraft that has animals that have died or getting killed or like whatever, but this one just freaks me out. Granted, like just seeing mold and fungus growing on stuff tends to also kind of freak me out. It's just, I don't know, because it usually grows on like dead or old stuff, so maybe that's just some sort of visceral reaction to like, this is not good, like this is not safe, like your brain is like, get away from this thing, right? Like, I have no idea. And there's also these birds that are eating the pigs, but there is actually a pig that is okay. He's just running around having a good time, but I don't know if he realizes what's going on here, but he's got to get out of here, man. So that's why this area in Drustvar is number 9. 8. Number 8 is the Forgotten Shore located in Dragonblight. And this one's probably already known by a lot of people, but I do think it's worth putting on the list because I do think it is one of the creepiest areas in World of Warcraft, primarily because of the history here. So this is where Arthas was trying to hunt for Mal'Ganis and he couldn't find him, and then he gets an emissary from Lordaeron arriving and they're like, hey guys, you gotta go home. And Arthas is like, I am not going home. And so he hires these mercenaries to go burn the ships that take them home. But when him and his men get to the ships, he's like, look what these people did. They burned our ships. And the mercenaries are like, what? You told us to. And he's like, no, I didn't. These guys are crazy. And so they end up just killing all of these mercenaries. And so this was pretty much a lose-lose for everybody, right? Like the mercenaries get killed, and then the soldiers that aren't able to get home have to stay here with Arthas, and they're just stranded here, and they're looking for Mal'Ganis, and so they all pretty much get killed. And then that really just leaves us with this haunted, forgotten shore. And so it's really sad. I think it's just people kind of see this area and they've seen it so many times. There's like, yeah, you know, it's the Forgotten Shore, it's Arthas, but like really thinking about it, it is pretty messed up. And so that's why the Forgotten Shore is number 8. 7. Number 7 are the dead dragons located at the Blade's Edge Mountains and at the Obsidian Citadel. And obviously these aren't like your standard creepy areas, but I do think they are creepy in their own way. I always remember going through Blade's Edge Mountains and seeing all these dragons impaled on the big spikes and all these dragon bones all over, and I was like, why is this a thing? And so after looking into it, it appears that Deathwing pretty much brought a bunch of black dragons to Draenor, and then after the planet was destroyed and became Outland, all of the dragons stayed and were then hunted by Gruul and his sons and various other Gron, leading to them getting impaled. In fact, Netherwing drakes are just black dragon eggs that were infused with energies of the twisting nether and mutated. Meanwhile, at the Obsidian Citadel, they're just like literally butchering the dragons. Like they're hanging them up on chains, they're cutting them up, there's like dragon heads there. Like it's genuinely not something you would expect to see in World of Warcraft, especially in Dragonflight, where it's just kind of like, yeah, very whimsical and fun. And then you go to a place like this and you're like, oh, this is very much the opposite of that. And so, yeah, overall, these are both very creepy places to me, not in like the haunted house spooky type of way, but in the like unsettling type of way. And so that's why the Blade's Edge Mountains and the Obsidian Citadel dragon areas are number 7. 6. Number 6 is this creepy witch house located at the Fernwood Ridge in the Tiergard Sound. And I really like this area as a creepy area in World of Warcraft because it has a lot of the stereotypical creepy stuff you would expect out of a creepy type of house, right? It's got the painting with the eyes that follow you around, which honestly, I don't even think you need the eyes to follow you around for this to be a creepy painting. Just like her eyes open that wide, staring down at you is freaky enough. But then located inside of the house and outside of the house, there's just a bunch of skeletons in cages, and it seems that they're being used for sacrifices or something like that. There's also a cave out in the back with a bunch of bones in it, and then there's the actual witch who's standing out in front of the house and just like, hey, yes, yes. I don't know, she's just standing there. I don't know what she's thinking about. And so, yeah, it's really just the vibes that this place is giving off on top of all the little creepy features here and there, and I think it's just a really spooky, haunted house type of thing located in World of Warcraft. I'm sure there's some quests and lore behind this place, but I was like, you know what? I don't even want to look into it. I think it's creepier just being like, dude, there's just some witch that lives up there that like sacrifices people to her gods or whatever. I have no idea, but that's why the Fernwood Ridge Witch House is number 6. 5. Number 5 is Crendor, and Crendor is an island and a ruined keep located on Darrowmere Lake in the Western Plaguelands. And so there's actually a ton of lore behind Crendor, but the creepy parts really start with the Barav family. And so the Baravs were an extremely wealthy family in Lordaeron, owning land which comprised Crendor, Brill, South Shore, and Tarn Mill. As we got closer to the Third War, the Aristocats became depressed, greedy, and rageful, and after decades of rule, in order to preserve their fortune and hold of the land well past their lifespan, the Baravs made a deal with the human mage Kel'Thuzad. And I'm sure if you've played World of Warcraft at pretty much any point, you probably know who Kel'Thuzad is. And because of all that, that's how Crendor secretly became the school of necromancy called Scholomance. And there's actually a quest chain where you get a spectral essence trinket that allows you to see the spirits wandering the island of Crendor. And so yeah, that was a very brief rundown of the history of Crendor, but I think it's just really creepy because obviously there's a lot of unsettling history here on top of the fact that it's just this old abandoned fortress. Well, I mean, Scholomance is still here, but abandoned in the... You get what I'm saying. So either way, that's why Crendor is number 5. 4. Number 4 are the Agamon Mills, and the Agamon Mills was a vast windmill network once controlled by the Agamon family in northern Tirisfal Glades. And so it says here that when the Scourge attacked Lordaeron, the Agamons decided to hold fast in their home and ordered their farmhands to remain on the property to defend it. This effort proved to be in vain, as the Agamons and their farmhands were massacred by the Scourge, and most of them arisen in their service. However, a select few were able to break away and instead became forsaken. In fact, in the Howling Fjord, the town of New Agamond is clearly named after the Agamons and their mills. But there's a few reasons that I put these on the list, one of which is the area itself is just really creepy, right? Like there's all this abandoned farm stuff and just ghosts and banshees floating around, and it is a very creepy area to just walk around or quest in. And then on top of that, I always remember seeing these windmills in the opening World of Warcraft cinematic. So I always remember seeing that warlock walking around, and he's literally in this area at the Agamon Mills. And so yeah, overall, very historic, very creepy, and that's why the Agamon Mills are number 4. 3. Number 3 is the Ice Spider Cave located in the Azure Span. And obviously the creepiness level of this place depends on your fear level of spiders, but I would say a lot of people are going to be freaked out about this place. Like you walk in here and then it is just numerous ice spiders just dangling from the ceiling. I would say for some people, this might be number 1. This probably is the creepiest place in the entirety of World of Warcraft. And one of the reasons I love doing these pointless top 10s is it allows me to add my own spin on, you know, top 10s that everybody's already done, right? There's plenty of videos out there like top 10 creepy places, scariest places in World of Warcraft. And it's always like the Karazhan Crypts, the Naxxramas, right? It's just like a lot of people know what to expect, but I try to go outside the box a little bit to find stuff that you're normally not going to find in those videos. Hence, like, you know, talking about the dead dragons and stuff like that. Now talking about this, you know, just things that can give you that creepy, unsettling vibe that's not necessarily just like some haunted area. And I think the Ice Spider Cave is the perfect example of that. Like, this is a place that you just go to, and it can be one of the scariest places in World of Warcraft. So that's why the Ice Spider Cave is number 3. 2. Number 2 is the Ravenhill Cemetery and the Dawning Wood Catacombs. And so the Dawning Wood Catacombs lie beneath the Ravenhill Cemetery in Duskwood. And so the Ravenhill Cemetery is the graveyard located near the town of Ravenhill. And I would say this cemetery provides some of the creepiest aesthetic in World of Warcraft. Like, a lot of people think of Duskwood when they think of creepy stuff in World of Warcraft. Like, I'm saying this after just talking about being like, I go out of my way to find the unconventional stuff. But really, I still have to include some of the actual creepy stuff because it really is creepy. And just walking around here, there's a bunch of ghouls and spiders and grave robbers and a whole bunch of stuff that's trying to kill you. And then nearby, in the Dawning Wood Catacombs, there's like a whole bunch of ghouls and ghosts down there as well. And I actually just made pointless top 10 crypts in World of Warcraft, and I was curious, what's the difference between a catacomb and a crypt? And apparently a catacomb is a vast interconnected network of underground tunnels used as a cemetery, while a crypt is a smaller self-contained underground chamber typically located beneath a church or monastery. So there you go, you learned something today. But yeah, overall, I had to include some Duskwood stuff on this list because it really is one of the creepiest zones in World of Warcraft, and that's why the Ravenhill Cemetery and the Dawning Wood Catacombs are number 2. 1. And number 1 is the Imperial Chamber, otherwise known as the Lordaeron Throne Room. And I actually picked this place for a few reasons. One reason you probably won't expect, but If you don't know, this is where Arthas Menethil killed his father back in Warcraft 3, and ever since then, this place has pretty much been haunted by that memory. In fact, if you go here and turn up the volume, turn down the music and everything, you can actually hear the voices of Arthas's father going through his entire, like, "What are you doing here, my son?" before he gets killed. And so yeah, it's pretty creepy. It's a cool Easter egg, but the reason I put it at number 1, on top of all the stuff I just mentioned, is every year for Hallow's End, there's a giant pumpkin that just shows up in this room. And I don't know why it is, but I just think it's so funny that like all this terrible stuff happened here. They're like, this is where Prince Arthas killed his father, and it led to like all these terrible things. We had to go to Northrend. Like, well, we just put a big pumpkin there. Right? Every year we'll just put a big pumpkin here where this horrific event went down. I don't know. Just the dichotomy of putting this big goofy pumpkin right where a tragic event happened is just kind of funny to me. So that's why the Lordaeron throne room is number 1. 10. Number 10 is Layrana, the half-melted dryad, and she is located at the Lost Light Grotto in Val'sharah. And so pretty much the owl beasts have gone crazy. They're disconnected from Elune, and Layrana is like, you gotta go help the other dryads before they pretty much get melted by these owl beasts. And then after you save them, you have to power up Layrana's Dreamcatcher, which allows you to break the owl beast barrier and gain access to Keeper Remulos and help save him. But by the end of all this, Layrana has been melted down into just this puddle of goopy jelly or whatever she is at this point. She's dead. It's also kind of funny because they didn't change her voice lines to be like, I'm melting. She's still like, the great outdoors, as she's like half melted. So it's weird. It's unsettling. And I think it's a quest that a lot of people have forgotten about. And so for this top 10, I really wanted to find some stuff that aren't in many other top 10s, because a lot of other top 10s at this point with creepy stuff in them are repetitive. It's just a bunch of stuff from back in the day. But I was like, you know what? We need some more modern creepy stuff in these top 10 lists. You know what I mean? And so I think this is very fitting for it. And that's why Layrana is number 10. 9. Number 9 is this painting located at the Barrow Knoll Cemetery in eastern Drustvar. And apparently the spirits of the dead lurk around these grounds. And the cemetery is crawling with grave bloom, which is an herb that grants the living the ability to see spirits. But that's not what brought me here. What brought me here was this painting. And if you look at this painting, it just looks like some guy that sailed the 7 seas or a pirate guy or whatever. But if you wait long enough, his face starts to turn into a skeleton face. And I tried to find information about it. I don't know who this is. I don't know why they have a thing here. I think it's just some random guy for a random painting. In fact, I'm pretty sure that there is another area in Borealis where you can find this exact same painting. I know because I saw it in like a random video or something, but I couldn't like pinpoint where it was. So there are multiples of this painting. This isn't like the only one in the game, but it's still pretty freaky. And I think it's more fitting in a place like this. So that's why I put it number 9. 8. Number 8 is the Path of Glory in the Hellfire Peninsula. And the Path of Glory is the road that leads from the foot of the Stairs of Destiny to the Hellfire Citadel. And if you take a closer look at the road, it's actually not just the normal road. It is completely made up of trampled Draenei bones, which is really freaky once you realize that. And so the orcs killed about 90% of the Draenei race here, and the ruins of the towns and temples of the Draenei can be found in various parts throughout Outland, but it's really insane to think about, because I remember I've walked back and forth on this road all the time, and you're like, oh, you know, there's some skeletons on the road or whatever, and you don't really piece it together until you know the full story. And now every time you walk on this road, you're like, this is insane. You know what I mean? Like, it truly is. And Varrock Sourfang, in fact, considered the road one of the Horde's greatest shames. And so for all those reasons, that's why I had to put the Path of Glory at number 8. 7. Number 7 is the World of Warcraft Wicker Man. And there's actually a few Wicker Men in World of Warcraft. But if you don't know, a Wicker Man was a large wicker statue in which the druids sacrificed humans and animals by burning. And the actual main evidence for the Wicker Man stems from Julius Caesar in his commentary on the Gallic War. And so when you first come across this Wicker Man cult in Drustvar, it's kind of freaky. Like, they're all standing around kind of worshiping it. And you're like, okay, this is kind of freaky. But the quest line actually gets kind of goofy. So it starts out with these two parents that have lost their son Edwin, and they're like, I think those Wickerman cultists took him. And so you go and find Lord Autumnvale, who's like the leader of the Wickerman cult, and he's like, listen, those people sent you. I told you, if you wish to know his whereabouts, you got to prove that you do. So you have to go find some offerings and bring the offerings to the Wickerman. And so you bring him the offerings and you bring him like fruit, and they're like, nah, he doesn't like fruit. What are you thinking? And then they're like, herbs? These aren't ritual herbs. These are cooking herbs. And then you finally bring him bones. They're like, oh yeah, he likes bones. And so he's like, okay, Edwin, yeah, he came to us and he was looking for the blessings of the Wicker Man. But while he was looking for offerings, he got attacked by bees and I don't know where he went. And so then you go looking for him and you find him in a cave and he's like, not the bees, not the bees. And so obviously this is a reference to the Nick Cage Wicker Man movie where his name is Ed in the movie. And then he's like, not the bees. And so you help fight off the bees. Edwin escapes, but then he gets recaptured by the Wicker Man cult for a blood sacrifice, and so you have to help fight off all of the Wicker Man cult and finally free Ed and burn the Wicker Man, and that's the end of the quest. And so what really started out as a thing I thought was going to be really creepy turned into a thing that was kind of goofy, but I decided to include it because I just thought it was fun anyway, and it's still a little creepy, so that's why the Wicker Man is number 7. 6. Number 6 is the baby harpy, and there's a lot of theories surrounding the baby harpy because at first you find this in the Exile's Reach up on one of the big wooden posts, and you're like, oh, it's just a baby harpy. It's in an egg, right? But then you look a little more into it, and it appears that harpies are pretty well known for stealing babies and children. In fact, someone brings up that there's a mage quest in Legion where you chat up Aether Sunreaver's apprentice, and you ask her, where did you meet him? And she tells a story about saving him from being kidnapped by a harpy and a banshee that were fighting over him. And on top of that, harpies stem from Greek mythology, where they were considered to be soul snatchers and are said to have done the work of Hades and stealing both children and the souls of other people, carrying them to the underworld. I mean, it is also possible that it is just some random Easter egg. I mean, quite literally an Easter egg to something, and I have no idea what it is, but if you know, or have some sort of theory, put it in the comments section below. I'd love to hear it. And that's why the harpy baby is number 6. 5. Number 5 is Teresa the Mind Slave, as well as the entire area of the Undercity's Apothecarium. And Teresa is an experiment of Gerard Abernathy, who removed parts of her brain and stimulated other parts, and is pretty much his human pet. And according to the WoW wiki, her name and blindfolded appearance may be a reference to Teresa from the game Fable. And so he pretty much has her do a bunch of errands and deliveries, and he shows her to his friends, and his friends are like, wow, that's unbelievable. I wish I had a human pet. Meanwhile, in the actual apothecarium, there's a bunch of experiments going on. There's a bunch of abominations hanging from the ceiling. There's abomination heads where you can see their eyes like moving all over, which is kind of freaky. There's a bunch of caged up humans and dwarves, and there's like a dead orc in a cage. Like, I feel like these are the types of things where you just normally are questing and walking around and you're like, ah, that's weird, and you keep going. But then when you stop and really analyze it, you're like, this is pretty messed up. You know what I mean? So that's why Teresa the Mind Slave and the Apothecarium are number 5. 4. Number 4 are the Nathavor tribe of blood trolls located in Nazmir. And not only do these trolls look kind of creepy, but this tribe is known for its heavy ritualistic practice of cannibalism. The women of the tribe actually eat the males and anything they capture, believing that the practice grants them greater power, and in addition to eating their own tribe and captured individuals, the tribe sacrifices some of the unfortunate souls to serve as food for the monstrous maw fiends they train and raise to aid the tribe in combat. And it's really just one of those places that's more creepy unsettling than it is like creepy scary. You know how there's plenty of things where you're like, ah, that's just scary, but this is more of that unsettling vibe where you have like trolls in jars, you have like weird looking architecture, you have trolls just eating people around here. Like, it's very odd, and it's kind of crazy that this was in World of Warcraft, you know what I mean? In fact, the entire zone of Nazmir has some pretty creepy stuff in it if you go back and walk around, but I would say the Nathavor tribe is one of the creepiest, so that's why they're number 4. 3. Number 3 are the Horde captives located in Boralis, and specifically Captive Tanra and Captive Tadam, I think, are the creepiest ones. So Captive Tanra is a female Tauren that is being literally water tortured. You know, it's not every day you see water torture in World of Warcraft, but here it is. She's just chained up and water's dripping on her as she's crying. And then there's Captive Tadam, who is being used for target practice as they throw a bunch of knives and shoot crossbows all around him. The other two are just like cooking and doing laundry, which seems way better than whatever, you know, Tadam and Tanra are going through, but it's all pretty bad. And this is all part of the quest Sky Drop Rescue, where Nathanos Blightcaller has you go and free the soldiers of the Horde and bring them back to the extraction point and set them free. So that's why they're here, but it's still pretty messed up, and that's why it's number 3. Number 2 are 2 locations located on top of mountains in the Blasted Lands. So the first one is a bunch of skeletons sitting around this floating crystal, and they're all holding these jars, so I imagine they were trying to do some sort of ritual, and then it backfired, and they all died, or something bad happened, but whatever it wasn't good. And then the other one is on a different mountain, and there's a summoning circle there, and it looks like a bunch of these soldiers are just solidified in the position that they died in. And it's really odd, especially when you go up to their faces and see it up close. It's like, it's pretty freaky. And I don't know, this might be a reference to the ruins of Pompeii, which that was the thing where the volcano erupted, and then everything got buried under a thick carpet of volcanic ash, and it kind of preserved everything. And so people were just like stuck in the position they died into the volcano. If you go look it up, it's also pretty weird. But yeah, the Blasted Lands has 2 different summoning rituals gone wrong on 2 different mountains. And so I was like, you know what? Let's put it at number 2. 1. And number 1 are the Forgotten Crypts of Karazhan, specifically the Upside Down Sinners. And I know that I mentioned earlier that I try to avoid things that have been on other creepy lists in the past and stuff like that, right? But I feel like this area, specifically the Underwater Sinner area, is like truly insane. Like, it's one of the craziest things in World of Warcraft. These like dead underwater chained up bodies just hidden away in this vacant large area that you have to explore under Karazhan to find. It's just, this is not something that you would ever really expect to ever find in World of Warcraft. And a lot of people had a bunch of theories about the crypts, why they were here, why they were never finished, but in a 2018 AMA, John Stats, who I fished with in a Fishing with Crendor, stated that the crypts were meant to be a questing area, but it turned out they were never needed, and so they were never finished, and that was pretty much it. But I would say this is one of the most creepy, well-known areas in the game, and that's why it's number 1. 10. Number 10 is the graveyard at the Shadowpan Monastery up in the Kunlai Summit in the Mist of Pandaria. And there's a bunch of things to like about this graveyard, one of which is it's kind of in this secluded mountain area. Obviously, it's up in the Shadowpan Monastery, which is already secluded in itself, but there's these really cool gravestones which have these headbands wrapped around, so I don't know if it's like maybe the warriors that died here wore those headbands, so they wrapped them around the grave or something like that. That's kind of what I was theorizing, but there's also these big cat statues kind of overlooking all the graves. And then in between 2 of the big tiger statues is this little shrine area that has a bunch of little carvings on it, like there's a paw print it looks like, and then I think what looks like a cloud with beams coming out of it. I don't know, I'm just kind of guessing. That's what it looks like. Also, for those of you that are like, Crendor, didn't you do a Pointless Top 10 Graveyards already? And yes, I did, but I'm doing a remake of it because that one is like 7 or 8 years old. So I was like, you know what? I want to do another graveyard list, and I want this graveyard to be on that list. And so that's why the Shadowpan Monastery graveyard is number 10. 9. Number 9 is the Grizzly Hills graveyard, and this is a bit of an unconventional one because it's not really a big notable graveyard per se, but this is just a place where you spawn at after you've died. But when I saw this, I was like, this is such a cool little graveyard. Like, they've made these gravestones out of planks of wood with bear traps attached to them, and then there's some empty coffins nearby. There's a bear pelt that's hanging on some raised wooden logs, and this is right near one of the trading posts, so I imagine this is where a lot of the hunters and trappers are buried when they've died. And so even though it's not the biggest or craziest graveyard, I think they did a really good job with the theming of this graveyard. And I think sometimes that's really what I appreciate most about World of Warcraft, is I think they do theming better than a lot of other games, and this fits right in. In fact, whenever you die in game, just stop and kind of take in your surroundings. Don't just like mindlessly run back, because I actually found a lot of really cool small graveyards, and they're themed really well, or they got funny little things there, so just take some time, look around, and appreciate them. Stop and smell the flowers. And that's why the Grizzly Hills graveyard is number 9. 8. Number 8 is the Shield Hill Graveyard located at the Howling Fjord in Northrend. And so the story here is at some point just prior to the war against the Lich King under the leadership of Jonah Sterling, who we talked about last week in Pointless Top 10 Weirdest Buildings in WoW, the North Sea freebooter pirates stole artifacts from the graves of Shield Hill, which brought the Cavaldir to the Northrend shores as they disturbed the spirits of the dead. I don't know if it's Cavaldir or Valdir. Somebody tell me in the comments section. And so there's a quest where the Tuskar are like, hey, you have to go get these artifacts and put them back in their graves where they belong, and then maybe the Cavaldir go away. But you do that, and then the Cavaldir are like, nah, dude, you messed this up, even though you didn't mess it up, the pirates did, and they're like, we're gonna attack anyway. And so that's what happens. And the graveyard is pretty much everything you would expect from a Viking-esque faction in World of Warcraft, where you have a bunch of shields and swords and ship parts and wood and all that stuff just on these big rocks, which I guess are supposed to be gravestones, but there's also gravestones next to the rocks, so maybe it's 2 types of gravestones, but I don't really know. I think they just look cool either way, so that's why the Shield Hill Graveyard is number 8. 7. Number 7 are the ancestral grounds of Nagrand, both located in Outland and Draenor. And so in Draenor Nagrand, this is a Warsong burial ground, and there's this big earthen giant skull overlooking the area. And then inside the mouth of the skull, you'll actually find Golmosh Hellscream, who is Grommash Hellscream's late father. And there's actually a quest where you have to kill the spirit of Golmosh Hellscream because he died in such a brutal way in combat that his spirit went into unrest. He was crushed within the jaws of a hulking Gron, and he found the strength to bury his axe, Gorehowl, deep into the eye of the monster, and when they fell, it was the Gron who died first. So I guess that kind of explains why he's standing in the jaws of a big giant. That would make sense. I also really like the way these spirits just float through the air, just kind of hovering. I don't know, I thought it was kind of eerie, but still kind of cool. And then there's the ancestral grounds of Nagrand and Outland, which it's definitely a lot smaller than the Draenor ancestral grounds, but there's still a bunch of stones all over, and the spirits wandering around, and there's fires and stones, and this is actually where Draenosh Sourfang was buried after his death at Icecrown Citadel. And so overall, there's a lot of history behind these ancestral grounds, both in the Draenor version and in the Outland version. And listen, I just love Nagrand in general, and this is another reason to add something from Nagrand to the list, and so that's why it's number 7. 6. Number 6 is the Kodo Graveyard, located in Desolace, and the Kodo Graveyard is based off of the Elephant Graveyard, and the Elephant Graveyard is, according to legends, a place where old elephants instinctively direct themselves when they reach a certain age. According to this legend, these elephants would then die there alone, far from the group. However, there is no evidence to support that this ever existed, so it was probably made up, but it's one of those things, maybe somebody saw a bunch of elephant skulls like all together and they're like, this must have been the elephant graveyard, and then people took that and ran with it. I feel like that's how a lot of myths and legends start, but I don't know. I'm just some guy making WoW videos on the internet. Don't come to me for historical advice. But yeah, the Kodo Graveyard is actually really cool with all these Kodo bones all around, and there's some quests involving getting Kodo bones here, but if you die here, you can actually see the spirits of the Kodos walking around, which I thought was really cool. And so overall, there's a lot of things that really make this a cool, unique graveyard, and that's why the Kodo Graveyard is number 6. 5. Number 5 is the Unknown Soldier Graveyard, and the Unknown Soldier is an undead former Alliance skeleton found in a small graveyard at Beggar's Haunt in Duskwood. And this is likely homage to tombs of unknown soldiers, which are built in many nations to honor unidentified soldiers killed in battle. And the graveyard's actually tucked away in a very private area, so you have to go up this path, and then there's the end of the river and some trees, and then you can see all these stone structures kind of surrounding him. But the weirdest part is there's these 2 giant dark portal statues next to him, which I don't get why these are here. Like, you would think the Alliance constructed this area, right? But then there's these dark portal statues. Like, why are these here? It's actually really weird. Like, I have no idea. I'm mainly curious if these were here when they built this graveyard, or if the graveyard was here and then these were constructed after. I feel like these had to have been here already, right? But it is a really weird place to have these dark portal statues kind of standing and lurking over you as this fallen unknown soldier. I don't know. It's definitely a one-of-a-kind graveyard, but it is a really peaceful graveyard for being a little eerie. Like, you have the little benches all around, and there's some tufts of grass and the waterfall. Like, it is very nice, but it's a little unsettling and mysterious, but I guess that fits right into what Duskwood is, so that's why I had to put the Unknown Soldier Graveyard at number 5. 4. Number 4 is the Gathering Graves, and the Gathering Graves is a graveyard located in the Battle for Azeroth version of Arathi Highlands. And I was actually going to put the Scarlet Monastery graveyard here, but I was like, you know what? I kind of just want to do something different. Everyone knows about SM Graveyard. Plus, I don't really like the new version of it. There's like plants and stuff all over. I don't know what's going on, but back to the Arathi Highlands. So, this graveyard is for the Forsaken members of the Desolate Council that were killed here during the Gathering. And if you don't know, the Gathering was an event that occurred that allowed both Forsaken and humans to mingle in peace. And so Anduin planned this gathering to reunite the Forsaken with their living relatives from Stormwind, which some of them did. And then Kalia Menethil came along and she was like, all the Forsaken are under my protection since I'm the rightful ruler of Lordaeron. But then Sylvanas told her Dark Rangers to go and kill Kalia Menethil and all of the Forsaken who were taking part in this gathering. And so the main reason Sylvanas did this was she wanted broken, hopeless Forsaken that had to rely on her. And these Forsaken were getting hope, and they're like, I want to go back to my families, and with Anduin's blessing, we can join the Alliance and live happily. And then all of this happened. And so Anduin, along with all of their families and friends, kind of created this graveyard in their memory. And so it's actually really sad. You can like click on the graves and see their names and all the little objects they left next to the graves, so it's another reason to not like Sylvanas. And that's why the Gathering Graves are number 4. 3. Number 3 are the Thunderstrike Mountain Graveyard and the Firebeard Cemetery located in the Twilight Highlands. And I honestly think these are some of the coolest graveyards in the game. So the Wildhammers of the Twilight Highlands honor the heroes in Kurthaven before burying them with their griffins atop Thunderstrike Mountain. That's where they are believed to spend eternity at one with the sky. And as you can see on top of the mountain, there's these big piles of stones, and each one of them has these griffin feathers tied together with some rope kind of wrapped around them. And then there's some nearby trees that appear to have some really cool carvings in them of what looks like a hammer and then a cloud with some lightning and thunder probably happening. Then nearby, down below the mountain, you have the Firebeard Cemetery, which I think has some of the coolest gravestones. It's these big griffins that have like wings on the sides of them, and their beaks are holding a variety of different things. And I think it's just really cool. I love the way they're buried up on the mountain and they get to soar with their griffins in the afterlife. And I love how they have these griffin gravestones down on the earth. Like, I just think it's really cool. And so that's why I had to put it at number 3. 2. Number 2 is the Ravenhill Cemetery located in Duskwood. And I think there's so many reasons for this to be number 2 on this list. I mean, people always have nostalgia of Duskwood and Ravenhill and all that stuff, but it's just a very thematic experience. Like, this is probably one of the gloomiest, kind of creepiest graveyards in the game. Obviously, you have Abercrombie and Stitches here. You've got skeletons walking around. You've got spiders. You've got ghouls. You've got zombies. You've got undead. Like, you've got any type of, like, Halloween-esque creepy creature. It's likely located in Duskwood and at or near the cemetery. Also, mentioning cemetery, I was like, wait, what's the difference between a graveyard and a cemetery? And it turns out that a cemetery is usually run by a council and not associated with a specific church, while a graveyard is actually associated with a church and run by a church. I didn't know that at all. In fact, I would have assumed that a cemetery was with a church and a graveyard was just a non-specific thing. So look at that, the more you know. But either way, it's nostalgic, it's well-known, it's creepy, and it's a great cemetery. Graveyard. Either one. And that's why the Ravenhill Cemetery is number 2. 1. And number 1 is the Aderic's Repose Graveyard, and Aderic's Repose is a cemetery in Gilneas located outside of the city to the west. And not only is this a massive graveyard, but it also has a bunch of unique gravestones and caskets and tombs, and there's just so many cool things here that you don't really see anywhere else in the game. And if you have never been here, I would honestly just come here and walk around as like a roleplay thing or just like a chill thing to do, or if you like creepy stuff, I don't know, but there's just so many cool things here. There's even this underground tunnel here that has a bunch of mummified corpses and skeletons laying around. And I think this might actually be the Undertaker's Pass, because on the WoW wiki it says just inside the funeral home are stairs that lead to a long crypt hallway known as the Undertaker's Pass. It is possible that the tunnel is used as a way to cart the dead from the city in secrecy. And so I would say that Aderic's Repose and the Gilneas graveyards are somewhat forgotten. Like, these are kind of just in zones that nobody really frequents outside of, you know, a quest here or there going through starting areas. But I think it's one of the coolest graveyards in the game. And so that's why It's number 1. 10. Number 10 are the faces hidden in the trees all over the Deadwind Pass. And I'm sure a lot of people saw these trees when they had to go to Karazhan, since that's really one of the only things you go to the Deadwind Pass for. And when I look at these trees, I just wonder how this happened. Like, are there spirits that got trapped in these trees? Did the trees just grow like this and it's a coincidence? Like, I'm genuinely curious why these trees look the way that they do. In fact, I saw someone describe them as petrified, which they are quite literally petrified. I don't think they're going to be moving anywhere anytime soon. But one of the theories I was thinking up is maybe the trees were growing and they got so freaked out by everything happening around Karazhan that the trees themselves just became petrified, and then the faces kind of personified the emotions of the trees. Like, I think that would be pretty cool lore behind it, but they might just be some trees with some creepy faces on them. Like, I have no idea, but either way, they're pretty cool, and that's why they're number 10. 9. Number 9 are the faces on the totems in Ashenvale, and these are pretty freaky, actually. These are some of the weirdest looking faces on anything in the game. Like, you have the big mouth totems that are like, oh, and you got the smaller ones that are like, oh. Those are the sounds I imagine that they're making right now, but some of them have like fire and flames coming out of their mouth. They have fire in their eyes. I don't know if they're like possessed by something, like maybe some sort of fell energy is inside of them, but it would make sense. They're in an area that has a bunch of infernals walking around and demons, so that's my theory. And I know there's a lot of furbolgs in the area, so maybe the furbolgs are the ones that actually created these totems, and then they just became possessed by this fell energy. Like, I have no idea, but what I do know is these totems are freaky. Like, they got faces that are looking all morphed and weird, and there's like faces to the sides of the faces. Like, it's just weird, and so I had to put it on the list, and that's why the Ashenvale totems are number 9. 8. Number 8 are the Happy Stone Talon trees, and the Happy Stone Talon trees are trees that have been cut down, and they're just laying on the ground, but if you look at the actual rings in the trees, it looks like there's a happy face, and I remember seeing this as far back as I can remember, like 20 years ago. Like, we're going way back, and I remember always seeing it being like, hey, there's a happy face in those trees, but I was like, am I just seeing that? But I don't think I am. I think many other people have seen it, because there is that thing where you see faces in stuff. It's called pareidolia is what it's called, and it's a brain phenomenon in which a person sees or hears something significant in a random image or pattern. Pareidolia is what causes people to see faces in inanimate objects, such as the image of the Virgin Mary in a grilled cheese or the man in the moon. And so I guess this could fit into that category, but this feels a little too intentional, I would say. Like, you can literally see that there's the two eyes and the mouth. Although, you know what? Maybe that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing the pareidolia right now. I don't even know, but either way, I can clearly see it, and I feel like a lot of other people can, so that's why the Happy Face Stone Talon trees are number 8. 7. Number 7 are the Knoll Tents, and the Knoll Tents are located in Elwyn Forest, and I believe a few other places like Feralis and Westfall. They're, you know, pretty much anywhere there's gnolls. And if you look closely at the Knoll Tents, you'll see that there is a human face that has been stitched together with a bunch of other fabric. I don't know if all the fabric is human skin, but there is definitely quite a bit of human skin in there. And you know what? The gnolls are just doing what humans do, right? Like, humans will go and kill animals and use animal skin. The gnolls are just killing humans and using human skin. So, I mean, it shouldn't surprise us too much that a fantasy race that is attacked by humans is going to kill humans and then make tents out of them, right? Also, funnily enough, this is the thing that sparked this entire Pointless Top 10. I remember looking for stuff and everyone's like, the Knoll Tents, the Knoll Tents. And if you search Knoll Tent faces, you'll find like 8,000 posts. Like, I think Knoll Tent faces is one of the most searched WoW Easter eggs. Everyone's like, did you know the tents are made out of faces? And there's like a billion people like, yes, we've seen it before. And so I'm telling it to you again, unless you've never heard of it, in which case the Knoll Tent faces are number 7. 6. Number 6 are the faces on the hands of the sea giants located in Nazjatar, and this might be another case of the pareidolia. All right, it sounds like a disease at this point. Like, you've got the pareidolia. I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. You see faces. But for real, I genuinely see some sort of squid tentacle-faced man, kind of like Zoidberg from Futurama, right? I mean, if you look at his hand, you can see there's the two eyes that I think are supposed to be like little coral bits or whatever they are, and then you can kind of see the nose, and then his fingers are the tentacles. Like, to me, it's like clear as day. That's like all I can see. And sure, it might just be a coincidence that Blizzard, whoever designed this, designed it that way, but I feel like there had to be some intent. Like, they looked at that hand and they were like, you know what? I can make this kind of look like a squid man, right? I feel like they had to have had that Otherwise, like, I feel like the corals could have been like a bit off, or there wouldn't have been a weird nose thing. Like, it feels like this is a squid man face, even if it is the pareidolia. So that's why it's number 6. 5. Number 5 are the faces on the trees in Fellwood and in the Eastern Plaguelands. They're kind of similar in a way, and I believe this is another case of pareidolia, but I think this is a bit more obvious because, I mean, if you look up there, you see 2 eyes, you see the big mouth, he has like the dripping ooze in the mouth, but I can also see how it might just look like a tree that's been cut and infected at some point. You know what I mean? So it's not guaranteed that there's a face in this tree, but I feel like this is one of the more prevalent trees in World of Warcraft in terms of looking like it has a face. And then there's the Eastern Plaguelands trees, which don't really have all the green, glowy, fell-infected energy or whatever, but they just have a bunch of smoke coming out of their broken bark area, but you still have the 2 eyes and the mouth, so they pretty much are the same tree, but they're just not infected, but instead they're just super high, I guess. But either way, I think these are some of the most iconic trees in World of Warcraft, especially for having faces in them. And so that's why they're number 5. 4. Number 4 is perhaps one of the weirdest ones that I found, which is saying something, but it is a clam smoking a pipe underwater in the Dreadwaste. That's right. If you go to the southern Dreadwastes, there's an area called Wreck of the Misthopper. And if you go just southwest of that, you will come across this random clam that is smoking a pipe. And he's even got little bubbles coming out of the pipe that he's smoking. And then for eyes, he has 2 more clams with pearls inside of them. And then they just kind of open up randomly. And then one will open and the other will open. And it's such a random thing that I didn't expect to find when looking for faces in World of Warcraft. But I mean, it's here. It's a big clam underwater, and it's a face. I don't know. That's really all there is to it. There's no crazy lore behind it. Nothing special. It's a clam underwater smoking a pipe. He's having a great time, I imagine. He'll keep having a great time. So that's why the clam underwater smoking a pipe is number 4. 3. Number 3 is a face that's located on the Goblin Shredders in World of Warcraft, and it's a face from another Blizzard franchise. It's Sarah Kerrigan from StarCraft. And if you look into the cockpit of a Shredder, you can see an image depicting an infested Sarah Kerrigan from StarCraft on the screen. In fact, the new Shredder model introduced in Mists of Pandaria with the Sky Golem mount features a similar thing where Kerrigan is from StarCraft 2 rather than the original StarCraft. So they kept on with it. They could have been like, hey, you know what? Let's give them an actual computer program that they can use. But you know what? They're goblins. They probably don't look at it anyway. In fact, you know what? Maybe Kerrigan's like actually giving them orders. She's like, go over there, chop that tree. And the goblin's like, all right, okay, I'll do it. Although I don't know how good the Kerrigan Shredder computer system is, because according to Bixie Buzzsaw, who works on Shredders as an engineer, she says Shredders have a new operating system that crashes every 5 minutes. So it must not be that good. But hey, maybe that's the lengths they have to go to get Kerrigan on that Shredder screen. So anyway, that's why the Kerrigan Shredders are number 3. 2. Number 2 are the Quillbore tent faces. That's right, you thought we were done with the Knoll tents. No, we got the Quillbores. And here's the thing, everybody talks about the Knoll tents being like there's human faces, but the Quillbores are just as messed up, all right? The Quillbores have an undead face sewn into their tents. Like, look at that. That undead face is really weird. Honestly, I think it's creepier than the human face in the Knoll tents. And I don't know why they specifically targeted undead faces for all their tents. Like, you would think they would use Tauren or something, right? Because there's so many Quillbore and Tauren areas, and I don't know. I just don't get it. Maybe they know something we don't. Maybe they're like, oh, the undead have very good structurability within their skin. Like, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, it is quite possible that for the other fabric around the undead face, they are using Tauren skin or hide or whatever you want to call it. That's a possibility. Or they're using leather they randomly found. Like, I don't know. But either way, they just really love using undead faces for all their tents. And nobody talks about it enough. They just keep talking about the gnolls. And so that's why the undead face in the Quillbore tents are number 2. 1. And number 1 is the Deep Run Clam. That's right, not the Deep Run Tram, the Deep Run Clam, because you go into the Deep Run Tram and you find that clam that's in the big tank of fish and water and whatever else, right? The big aquarium thing. And if you stop and look inside the clam, you will see 2 faces that are looking at each other that are just, I believe, the same face, same image, and they're just staring at each other. They're like mirrored. And I don't know what this is or who it is. I found one thread on Reddit talking about it, and nobody there could even figure it out. People were looking at the file name, people were looking at old pictures of like Chris Metzen. This actually reminds me more of Taryn Gregory, who I actually fished with back in 2016, and he is the lead cinematic narrative designer for World of Warcraft, and he's been working there for as long as I can remember. But he's the person I thought of when I saw that, with the glasses and similar style beard and hair. But I mean, outside of that, I don't know why they would put him in a clam in the Deep Run tram, unless it's like some weird inside joke thing that happened. I feel like I need to ask this the next time I get to interview Blizzard employees or something, but they're probably not even gonna know. So either way, I had to put this at number 1 because it's just a mystery and it's weird. So that's why the Deep Run clam is number 1. 10. Number 10 are the Fetid Crypts, and the Fetid Crypt is a large chamber below Atul Aman in Vol'dun, and you can only access it through the abandoned passageway, which is in the side of this big mountain, and there's all this sand pouring over the edges, and it's blocked by this big magical barrier. But once you're able to do the quest and unlock the magical barrier, then you can go into the Fetid Crypt, and it's actually really cool. It's not really what you would think of a crypt where, you know, there's probably a bunch of caskets all over or big stone hallways. It's just kind of this big corrupted area. I also had no idea that the word fetid meant smelling extremely unpleasant. I don't know if that's just because I'm uncultured in my vocabulary, but I never heard anybody say fetid, and if I did, I didn't acknowledge it. So now I know that this place, this crypt, smells extremely bad. But yeah, overall, this is really one of the more unique crypts in World of Warcraft in that it's in the desert, it's corrupted with a bunch of tentacles and mushrooms and crazy stuff, and it's kind of hidden away. Literally, it's in a hidden secret passage area. So that's why the Fetid Crypt is number 10. 9. Number 9 is the Undercroft, and the Undercroft is a crypt in the southwestern region of the Eastern Plaguelands, and I'm sure a lot of people remember this from classic hardcore WoW. I know I do, because I came here at like my mid-50s, ready to level up and hit 60, and I almost died here, and many people almost died here because there's a quest where like 4 or 5 trolls attack you, or maybe it's 3 trolls, but there's so many trolls all close together that it's a really difficult place to kind of quest in if you're doing hardcore WoW. If you're doing regular WoW, it's like whatever, you'll die or whatever, but it was genuinely a close call with all these trolls. And so all of the undead trolls here are led by the undead dire troll Zaeldar the Outcast, and he apparently leads occasional raids on the Argent Dawn's base at Light's Hope Chapel to steal bodies from their grave pit. But yeah, then the rest of the crypt is really cool. This is kind of one of the more common crypts in World of Warcraft. Like, this is a crypt they've been using all the way back since classic World of Warcraft, so pretty much, I think if you've played WoW at any point, you've probably been in a crypt like this one. So I just think this one's cool because of all the undead trolls and the hardcore WoW stuff and everything like that. So that's why the Undercroft is number 9. 8. Number 8 is the Absolution Crypt, and the Absolution Crypt is located in Revendreth. And this is actually one of the few times that we've had new crypts added to the game. So I was like, well, I have to include this one. There's actually a few other crypts, but some of them you can't actually get into. There's like quest lines, or I think stuff with anima. And listen, it was Shadowlands. I'm not about to go back there, but this one you can actually go into. It's pretty cool. And so this actually made me curious, what is a crypt? What is defined in the dictionary as a crypt? And it says here that a crypt is a chamber, such as a vault, wholly or partially underground, and a vault under a main floor of a church or chamber in a mausoleum. Simply put, a crypt is a vault or small space used to house dead bodies, generally in the floor of a church or underground in some capacity. And it says that the world's first known crypts were used in Italy, Greece, and South Africa to house bodies of saints, priests, martyrs, and other ancient Christians deemed worthy of entombment. And you know, one of my favorite things about doing these top 10s for things like windmills and lighthouses and crypts and stuff, right, is that we get to learn real life historical facts about these things. And now I just feel like I'm smarter, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I haven't learned what fetid was, so that's why the Revendreth, or the Absolution Crypt in Revendreth, is number 8. 7. Number 7 is the Stromgarde Keep Crypt, and the Stromgarde Keep Crypt is located at Stromgarde Keep in Arathi Highlands. And this one is very similar. In fact, I think it's the exact same crypt as the Undercroft, but I think this one just feels different because obviously it's not overrun by undead trolls, and it has a lot of history behind it. I also just think the area itself looks really cool, right? Like, there's a bunch of gravestones all around, and there's trees, and I mean, we're literally in the castle walls, so it's kind of like this crypt is within the castle, and I don't know, there's just this creepy element to it, and I really liked how it felt here. And so I do want to talk about the history a bit, because I do think it's pretty cool, and I mentioned it. So during the third invasion of the Burning Legion, the crypt was opened by the Knights of the Ebon Blade with Troll Kalar. I think that's how you say it, but Troll Kalar is the legendary sword of the Trollbanes, the royal family of Stromgarde. And the name literally means Troll Slayer in the ancient tongue of Erethdor. But anyway, the Knights of the Ebon Blade came in here, and they used the sword, and they raised up King Thoris Trollbane as a member of the Four Horsemen. And so if you're a Death Knight, you've probably seen the Four Horsemen. It's literally a Death Knight talent. And so you have Thoris Trollbane, Nazgrim, Darian Mograine, and Sally Whitemane. So yeah, overall, the area is really cool. There's some cool history here, and it's pretty great. So that's why the Stromgarde Keep Crypt is number 7. 6. Number 6 is the Tomb of the Old Kings, and the Tomb of the Old Kings is a crypt found on Shield's Rest in Stormheim. And it says here that several Vrykul kings were buried here, and their tomb protected by traps and Vrykul spirits. During the Burning Legion's invasion of the Broken Isles, adventurers plundered 3 of its treasures. First, a warrior came to challenge Magnar Icebreaker in order to reclaim the Scale of the Earth Warder. Next, the Paladin came to challenge Ygrimme the Truth Seeker for Truthguard. And finally, the spirit of Warlord Volund was disturbed by a hunter in order to take Titan Strike. So really, we just came down here and disrupted the dead just to get our artifact weapons, is what I'm getting out of all of this. But yeah, all that aside, the actual crypt itself is really cool. There's like torches on the wall and these big stone pillars and a lot of really cool, well-carved designs in here. And then there's like caskets and tombs all over. Like, it is a really cool area. In fact, I would go as far to say this is probably one of the biggest crypts in World of Warcraft, aside from maybe one of the crypts coming up on the list that I'm sure nobody's ever heard of before. Yeah, I love this crypt. I think it's really cool, and so that's why the Tomb of the Old Kings is number 6. 5. Number 5 is Lord Admiral's Rest, and Lord Admiral's Rest is the royal crypt of Borealis, where the deceased members of House Proudmoore and the past Lord Admirals of the nation rest. And I think this is one of the areas that either not many people know about or just completely forgot about. Maybe they were just kind of running through here when they were questing back in the day in BFA, and then just being like, oh, that place was neat, and then, you know, you just keep questing. You go about your day, you're doing whatever, right? You don't really stop and appreciate this area and how cool it is. You got the flowers, you got the autumnal trees, you've got the little gates and the flags and the birds, you're right by the water, and it is a really nice area. In fact, one of my favorite things here is the Kraken candle holders. You can see the Kraken has all the tentacles, and then each one is carrying a candle. I think that's really sick. And so overall, I would just say this is a really nice burial area. If you're in Borealis for some reason, maybe you're taking a portal room or doing whatever, I would just say, hey, you know what? Run over here to the Lord Admiral's Rest, walk around, take a look at everything, and be like, yo, this is actually a really nice area. So that's why the Lord Admiral's Rest is number 5. 4. Number 4 are the Karazhan Crypts, and I feel like I don't even have to describe the Karazhan Crypts. You know what I mean? Like, everybody knows about the Karazhan Crypts. Every video that's ever been made about creepy stuff has the Karazhan Crypts in it, but I mean, how could I not include the Karazhan Crypts in a list about crypts? And I mean, the Karazhan Crypts truly are a really cool place. Like, you've got these big hallways with skeletons all over, and there's the little areas where, you know, I guess they put coffins and caskets and stuff like that. And then, you know, you've got bones piled up on each other. You've got big areas with just empty space or gates and water. Like, it is a really creepy, cool area, but it's just, you know, everybody knows about it. It's been in like every single video, and, you know, they even made it into a dungeon in the classic revamped or whatever it's called, Season of Discovery. I forgot what it was called. And so overall, I had to put the Karazhan Crypts on this list, but I didn't want to put them super high up, but I didn't want to put them too low either. So I thought number 4 was a perfect spot. So that's why the Karazhan Crypts are number 4. 3. Number 3 are the Alkani Crypts, and the Alkani Crypts are located at Alkendown in the Terakar Forest. And I'm sure a lot of people remember the Alkani Crypts from going to the dungeon back in the day during Burning Crusade. And I'm going to read you the background because I actually think this is really cool. So it says here that it is said that long ago a shadowy cult invaded Alkendown. In its depths, the cult released an immensely powerful malevolent being from arcane captivity, blasting the decrepit city apart. Any adventurers brave enough to enter the abandoned, bone-littered remains of Alkendown would do well to remember the warning of the city's original guardians, the Alkani. The original exiles on Draenor found death to be an unsettling and unfortunate consequence of life, and so the Draenei hid their dead away in the subterranean grave city of Alkendown, a labyrinth marvel beneath the forests of Terakar. It also says here that Alkendown is a mausoleum, and so I was like, what's the difference between a mausoleum and a crypt? And it says a mausoleum is the entire building or above-ground structure that houses burial burial spaces, while a crypt is the individual chamber or vault within the mausoleum where a casket or urn is placed. And honestly, I think some of the things on this list are actually mausoleums, but I'm just going to call it crypts anyway because it's Pointless Top 10 and this is a Crendor video. So that's why the How Could I Crypts are number 3. Number 2 is Uther's Tomb, and Uther's Tomb is a monument dedicated to Uther the Lightbringer at Sorrow Hill in Western Plaguelands. And I was on the fence on whether or not this would be considered a crypt, but when I looked up more definitions for crypt, it said a crypt is a specific type of tomb, typically a stone or concrete chamber or vault. And I was like, you know what? This is close enough. I was like, it's Pointless Top 10. I can make exceptions on this list. And I don't think I'm going to be doing tombs because there aren't many tombs in World of Warcraft, at least what I could find. So I'm fine with putting Uther's Tomb on this list of crypts. And this really is a beautiful building. Like, we have the trees and the flowers and the decorations all around the outside. And then the actual structure of the tomb is like these big carved stone things with stained glass and banners, and it looks really cool. And then you get onto the inside and there's more like big stained glass and this giant statue of Uther, and there's vines and candles all over. It's a really cool area. And I mean, on top of all that, Uther is one of the most well-known characters in World of Warcraft's lore, and so that's why Uther's Tomb is number 2. And number 1 is the Badlands Crypt, and the Badlands Crypt is located southeast of the Hammertoe dig site in the Badlands. And what makes this crypt so unique is when you go inside of it, there are some skeletons all laying around, and there is a throne with a skeleton king that is on the throne. And apparently this is a reference to the Conan the Barbarian story, The Thing in the Crypt, in which Conan finds a crypt and takes the sword of a mummified king sitting on a throne. This also inspired a scene in the 1982 film Conan the Barbarian. And in fact, on top of all that, this is the crypt that started the list of crypts for Pointless Top 10, because I was just rolling around looking for stuff for Pointless Top 10, and I was like, what is this place? And then I found it, and I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like, I should do a top 10 crypts, and this was the first crypt on the list of crypts. And I do think it's really fun when you're exploring in World of Warcraft, and then you just come across something like this, and it feels like you found something that is hidden away or mysterious, and you're like, why is this crypt in the Badlands with a bunch of skeletons all over? Like, it was just really cool, and so I decided to put it number 1 for all those reasons, and that's why the Badlands Crypt is number 1. Number 10 is some stuff that I found out in the water near the fatigue areas of the Dragon Isles. And I actually thought I was discovering some crazy stuff because there's this big shipwreck, which you can see right there. And then nearby, there's a skeleton that's by some planks. So I was like, oh, this guy must have been by the ship. And then there's this little lantern thing that's got some light beaming out of it. So I was like, yo, that's pretty cool. And then right near that, you see this skeleton of a fish that has a dagger or a sword stabbed into its head. So I was like, yo, this guy must have put up a fight, and then he stabbed this fish, and then he couldn't swim up, and he just died. And then a little near there, there's actually another big fish skeleton, and this one has a skeleton of a person inside that fish skeleton. So there's a lot of skeletons down here, which makes sense. I mean, we're way under the sea. But what made me put this at number 10 after finding all this cool stuff is a lot of this is just reused assets from Battle for Azeroth. And when I was swimming around BFA, I found these lanterns, I found these skeletons like all over the place. And I was like, dude, I thought I stumbled across some like crazy story that got put there, but really, it was just some reused assets. I think I even found a couple more of these in the Dragon Isles, but I think I found the coolest set of skeletons that tell the most cohesive stories, so that's why it's number 10. Number 9 are some things I found in southwest Azuna out in the Great Sea. And the first thing is the Sword in the Stone, and it's literally a sword in the stone, which I imagine is a reference to the Excalibur sword from King Arthur. I couldn't think of King Arthur for a bit. And it appears there's some skeletons with spears in them. So either there must have been a battle around here, maybe to get the sword, or maybe they tried to get the sword and they got hit before they could get it. Who knows? But I do know that this was pretty cool to find because I never knew this was here. And then not too far away from this, there are these giant fish skeleton bones. At least I think it's a fish. Maybe it's a whale. Whatever it is something massive. Oh, like look at the rib cage on this thing. It almost looks like a dome. Like this is a house people could live in. And it's just this giant rib cage. And I saw this and I was like, dude, this is so cool. Like I would love a building like this. Like maybe if the Tuskar made a building out of this somehow, they like got this out of the ground and then did that. I don't know. I'm just theorizing and throwing stuff together. And then finally, right near this big whale skeleton is this pearl. And it's just this pearl in this area and it's just chilling there. I don't know if it has any meaning. I don't think it has any quest or purpose, or I don't think anything happens in this area. I think it's just a cool little area with a pearl and some clams. It almost looks like a chair actually, but that's why all these things in southwest Azuna are number 9. 8. Number 8 is in the water below the bridge that leads from the Arathi Highlands into the wetlands. And in the water below the bridge, there appears to be a dwarf who has been crushed by the bridge or fallen off or something has happened to him. And I was really curious about who this dwarf was, and so after researching it, I found out that his name is Sully Baloo, and according to Wowpedia, Sully Baloo is a dwarven soldier with much faith in his mission stationed in Dunmodir. He and his unit were dispatched to watch over the Thandal Span. During the Dark Iron Clan assault, Sully died, most likely due to falling off the bridge. His body can now be found in the water beneath the span next to a letter for his wife in case of his death. After the letter is delivered, his wife Sarah Baloo writes a plea to King Magni Bronzebeard, who orders Grand Mason Marbleston to build a granite memorial for Sully. And this is actually a real-life reference to a letter written by Union Major Sullivan Baloo to his wife Sarah shortly after the First Battle of Bull Run in July of 1861. So there you go. It turns out, when you go underwater and swim around, you never know what you're gonna find, and that's why Sully Baloo is number 8. 7. Number 7 is the Old God treasure that you can find in Tiragard Sound or in Dragon Isles somewhere. I actually couldn't find it in Dragon Isles, but I did find it in Tiragar, and I know that because when I researched everything, there were people making threads being like, dude, are there old gods in the Dragon Isles? Are they like under the sea? But then people were like, no, this is like reused assets from Battle for Azeroth. So it probably is more tied into N'Zoth since that was all in Battle for Azeroth. But it also kind of gives me the Darkmoon Faire vibe. So this could almost be tied into the Darkmoon Faire in some weird way as well, especially because a lot of that was tied into like, we don't know where the Darkmoon Faire Island actually is. So this could be a reference to that. Like, who knows? There's so many theories about this treasure. But one thing's for sure, and that's nobody has any idea of what it actually is, except the fact that it's an old god eyeball, potentially, and it's just around a bunch of treasure. However, this might be the perfect opportunity to say inside pointless things are treasure, but we don't actually know if this is pointless or not. So that's why I couldn't put it higher up on the list, and it's reused assets. So that's why number 7. 6. Number 6 is some cool stuff that I found northeast of High Mountain and Stormheim out in the Great Sea. And I'm kind of cheating here because I'm like putting multiple things at every spot, but there was so much cool stuff that I found underwater that I was like, I got to include a lot of these. So I just started grouping things that were pretty close together in their own category. So there's actually a ton more. I can make a whole nother video on this, but for now, here's what appears to be a Vrykul ship being eaten by this giant dragon skeleton thing. I think it's a dragon. It kind of looks like it, and it clearly took a giant bite out of this ship, and then I guess they just both crashed into the water or something, and they're all dead. But that was really cool to find underwater. And then over here, we have this upside-down boat with these nets kind of holding it up, and these crabs are just running around. And occasionally the crabs will be like, blue, 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 and like a bunch of sand and dust like flies up. So like, I don't know what they were doing. It looks like they were playing some sort of sport, but I don't know what crabs do, so they're having fun, I guess. And then finally, we have the corrupted groupers, which are swimming around this crashed, sunken, forsaken ship, and there's a bunch of these toxic barrels just sitting down there, which appears to be the reason why these groupers are corrupted. And again, there's no quest for these guys. There's really nothing that talks about them at all. This is just some random thing out in the ocean, which is pretty pointless. So I love that, and that's why they're number 6. 5. Number 5 is the Bubble Bath, and the Bubble Bath is located beneath the Hissing Grotto in the northwestern Waking Shores. And from what I researched, this area is actually used for a couple of things, one of which is the Hidden Dragon Pet Quest, and then the other one is the Otto the Mount Quest. But I mainly picked this area because I love how goofy it is. They have a dancing pad on the ground. There's just a bunch of people walking around like they're above ground. And I also wanted to give a shout out to all the other underwater bars and inns located throughout Azeroth, because there's a lot of them. And I've even mentioned some of them in Pointless Top 10 Taverns, which you could go watch after this if you want, but I wanted to give a shout out to all those because I do think it's really cool that they have a bunch of these underwater taverns and inns located all over in Battle for Azeroth and Dragon Isles. And so that's why the Bubble Bath and all of the other taverns underwater are number 5. 4. Number 4 is this giant elf statue located in the ruins southeast of Suramar out in the Great Sea. And I'm not sure who this elf is. I guess it could be Elune. Maybe it could be some other famous elf. I would imagine you'd have to be pretty famous in order to get a statue built out of yourself. And the statue actually reminded me of the front of the ship, those things on the front. That's the figurehead, right? It reminded me of a figurehead on the front of a ship. And although this isn't a ship, I guess maybe they modeled it after the figurehead of a ship, I guess. Whatever it is, I think it is pretty cool. And then all around her, there's elf ruins, there's some fish bones, there's a bunch of trees and kelp and stuff. And if you really enjoy exploring underwater, I would say this is an area you should start with because there is so much stuff here. There's way more ruins than this. I think Legion had like the most stuff underwater out of anything I looked through. So if you really want to go exploring underwater, go look at Legion because it's got an insane amount of unique things. But anyway, that's why the underwater Suramar ruins and elf statue are number 4. 3. For number 3, we head out to Draenor, where we have a little thing and a big thing, quite literally. So we start with Ashran, and if you go into the fatigued waters of Ashran, you will find this gnome skeleton, and he's got a jug of something, and then some sort of cage to catch something. Like, I don't know what that cage is for, but it's a gnome skeleton out in the waters. I don't know what he was doing. Maybe he was collecting mushrooms. Maybe he was trying to do something. Whatever he was doing, it did not end well. And the other one is out in the eastern waters of Gorgrond, and there is this big ogre cyclops statue with a bunch of mushrooms growing out of it. And it's just really cool. I don't know how it got there either, but it's randomly out there. There's actually a treasure chest with like an anchor and a skeleton nearby, so maybe they were trying to get out there too. I don't know what they were doing, but I just think this was really cool to find out in the water. In fact, scouting Draenor underwater was pretty easy. For some reason, like swimming through the Draenor water was a lot clearer than swimming through a lot of the other places. So it's actually easier to find stuff underwater in Draenor, but I don't know why. It's just the way the graphic settings are or something. But either way, that's why the gnome skeleton and the ogre cyclops statue head are number 3. 2. Number 2 is located in the far northeastern part of Stormheim, and I mean way northeast, and it is this weird spot where the shark is just chilling under this big rib cage, and there's some pirate ship stuff around here, and then there's a bunch of dead murlocs. In fact, these are called lifeless murlocs. And when I looked it up on Wowhead, there were only 2 comments, and they were just like, yeah, I mean, these are just lifeless murlocs in this really weird area, and there's really nothing, relevant about this place. It's just, they're just here. And so if I had to make some sort of assumption, I would say the shark probably did it, right? I think the shark probably killed all of them. I don't know if they were on the boat. I don't think murlocs know how to sail a boat, so I don't think they crashed it here. Maybe they came here after somebody else shipwrecked and they were trying to loot it, and then the shark came over and was like, yo, I'm gonna kill all these murlocs, and then it did. I have no idea. It's such an odd thing to find out in the water in the middle of nowhere, and that's why it was perfect for number 2. 1. And number 1 is the Writhing Leviathan located at Hayman's Hideaway in Vol'dun. And I think a lot of people already know about this one, but I just think it's really cool. So the Writhing Leviathan is this big kraken, and then there's this horn, and you can blow the horn, and he's just like, and he starts, doing a little jig, I guess. He's just like, he's dancing around. And then on top of that, there's this little boathouse area, and then there's a bunch of jellyfish just kind of floating all around. It's a really cool area. And the reason I wanted to put it at number 1 is it just has this cool, creepy vibe to it, right? Because everybody's like, oh, there might be monsters down in the seas below. And so this actually kind of feeds into that, because you're like, oh, what's this horn? And you look down and you just see that and you're like, but then, he's just kind of doing his own thing. He's dancing around, having a good time. The jellyfish are there to watch him, or maybe they're his friends. So to me, this is actually a really fun place, but I'm sure for other people, they are freaked out and scared and like, I'm never coming back here. And that's fine too. And that's why the Writhing Leviathan is number 1. 10. Number 10 are the ripe pumpkins located at the Earth Mother's Bounty in High Mountain. These pumpkins are used to create ripe pumpkin juice, which is then used to create Rivermane Remedy, which is a potent brew that, quote, revitalizes, strengthens, and freshens the breath. So you're literally just making a breath freshener. But I mean, when you really think about it, World of Warcraft probably does smell terrible, right? Like nobody's wearing deodorant, nobody's brushing their teeth. There's like undead walking around. You know what I mean? It probably smells like a gaming convention. But that's besides the point. I think what I love about this area is all the like crazy corn sticking out of the ground and all the different colors of pumpkins there are. And then obviously there's like the worms and the grubs going all around. There's like Tarn just beating up worms like, ah, get out of here. I just love that too. There's just like Tarn with brooms like, get out of here. Yay, you gotta go on, get. But this is a very autumnal area, a lot of cool vegetables growing, especially the pumpkins, and that's why it's number 10. 9. Number 9 is Dawson's Farm, and Dawson's Farm is located in the Western Plaguelands and used to be called Dawson's Tears, which Back in the day, Mrs. Dawson wandered the property as a wandering skeleton, literally a wandering skeleton. And once you read her diary, she would drop the key to the outhouse where Farmer Dawson, a now terrible ghoul, is trapped. If one kills Farmer Dawson, he drops a key to a cabinet. The cabinet left in the farmhouse can be opened for a reward. So I do remember that entire quest chain, but now Dawson's farm is back to just being a farm, or I guess Dawson's tears back, whatever, it doesn't matter. It does say on the WoW wiki that the farm appears to be abandoned, but is presently growing a variety of vegetables, including pumpkins. But if it's abandoned, like, who's growing this? Like, this looks like a lot of effort is being put into this place. Like, this isn't just like stuff just started growing. It looks, I don't know. Listen, I don't know how farms work. Maybe it is. Maybe that is happening. But I love the pumpkins here. I think what I like about this place is it's a standard pumpkin patch, right? Like, you got your standard pumpkins. You got a couple weird pumpkins that have come alive and they're walking around. But to be fair, maybe they're the ones that are farming, right? Who am I to judge? They might love farming and they attack you because they think you're ruining their farm, you know? And they're just trying to grow pumpkins. Maybe that's their relatives. I don't know. But either way, it's number 9. 8. Number 8 are the petulant pumpkins. I think that's how you say that. And they're located in the Heartland, which is the largest farming land in all of Pandaria, found in West Central Valley of the Four Winds. And the land is actually able to produce large crops due to the magic properties of the nearby water source, which comes from the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. So I would say that these pumpkins are coming alive because of that magical water source. However, we did just see these same types of pumpkins over in Western Plaguelands, so I don't know about that. But I figured this would be a good spot to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and do the petulant pumpkins and the Heartland pumpkins, because I do love this area in Valley of the Four Winds. I think it's great. You got all the pumpkins growing and everything, but I also wanted to give the petulant pumpkins a little bit of a shout out. You know, they're just kind of chilling there, looking all creepy jack-o'-lantern-esque, and then, you know, you get close and they're just like, and that's, you know, that's the noise they make, obviously, but either way, these are walking, fighting pumpkins, so they gotta be on the list, and that's why they're number 8. 7. Number 7 are the candy buckets located all around WoW, and I know these technically aren't pumpkins, right? But they're pretty much depicting pumpkins, and so I was like, you know what? It's the shape of a pumpkin, it's got the jack-o'-lantern face. It's pretty much a pumpkin, right? Listen, this is a pointless list, all right? I can do whatever I want. So, during the Hollow's End event, each inn has a candy bucket that serves as the start and immediate endpoint of the quest candy bucket. Characters are allowed to obtain 1 handful of treats from each candy bucket each year. Now, here's the thing. Where are they getting all these candy buckets? I was making this video and I just started thinking about, like, how do they get these candy buckets? How does every inn in the entire game get one of these candy buckets? Do they just appear out of nowhere and everyone's like, there it is, it's arrived, right? Are they just so used to it now that they don't even question it? Are they like, oh, it's one of the old gods putting the candy buckets here, which is kind of creepy if you think about it. Like, where are these candy buckets coming from? You know, like, really, I'm genuinely curious. Let me know in the comments section if you know where these candy buckets come from. I get it. It's probably just a game and they're like, oh, we put it in the game, but there's like no lore reason. Like, imagine you're just standing there minding your own business, and then all of a sudden a candy bucket pops up and you're like, guess it's just that time of the year again. Like, what? Anyway, they're number 7. 6. Number 6 are the pumpkins at the Rose. Not like rose like the flower, like rose like a row of something. And the Rose are the bountiful fields of the Dilo farmstead on the Wandering Isle. And there's actually a lot of variety of pumpkins here. They got some like orange beige pumpkins, they got green pumpkins, they got purple pumpkins, they got a whole bunch of pumpkins. But I think the coolest part is how they're just in rows, hence why the place is called Rows, right? They also have rows of carrots and turnips and berries and a whole bunch of stuff. Actually, not a whole bunch of stuff. That's mainly it. But they have pumpkins. And the vermin are trying to steal the pumpkins or eat the pumpkins. I don't know. They're trying to do something. But vermin love vegetables, apparently, especially carrots, and they will often steal any vegetable they can find and sometimes use them in unorthodox ways, such as turning watermelons into toy boats. Because at first I was like, oh, maybe the vermin are just trying to steal them and eat and do whatever, but apparently they're just making boats out of them. But this isn't a vermin list. This is a pumpkin list, and that's why I wanted to put these pumpkins on the list, because this actually is a really cool area, right? All the pumpkins are lined up. It's almost like a big pumpkin patch. If anything, I think this is the most pumpkin patch-esque thing in World of Warcraft. So that's why they're number 6. 5. Number 5 are the pumpkins scattered all across the cities of World of Warcraft, and I love these because they actually got a lot of variety. There's pumpkins and witch hats. There's pumpkins with like one eye. There's pumpkins with like lightning bolts as eyes or little like electrical looking things. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of different ones, which I can appreciate. I think it's really cool. And another fun fact is that a few years ago, they tried to update the pumpkin models and they ended up making them these like weird glowy looking pumpkins, and they didn't even have a candle inside. And everyone was like, dude, where's the candle? And now they've actually updated them again to the point where they do have a candle inside. In fact, some of the pumpkins actually have like little seed type flowers and stuff inside. So I appreciate the attention to detail that they've gone into with these pumpkins, and it's been great. In fact, with Hollow's End, I think it's really cool to always see the pumpkins everywhere, like outside the auction house and up on buildings and literally just all over, and even in places that you wouldn't even expect them at some points. And I think it's just a nice little touch that they do every year. So that's why the city pumpkins are number 5. Number 4 are the Saladin Farmstead pumpkins. And at first I thought this was a funny one because I'm like, dude, there's literally one pumpkin here. This is like the most pointless top 10 pumpkin patch ever. Literally just one pumpkin. But then I found a couple other pumpkins. And reading a bit more into the lore, I guess I kind of understand it a bit more, because the Saladin Farmstead in the western Tirisful Glades is one of the only places in northern Lordaeron where the native farm folks survive to this day untainted by the plague of undeath. And the farmers have united with the zealous Scarlet Crusade, who has a nearby outpost to the west, for protection against the Forsaken and the Scourge. Farmer Saladin leads the farm himself, and the Saladins nurture themselves on large pumpkins they grow in their patch and supplement it with meat from the woods whenever they have a chance. Their proximity to both the Agamond Mills and Deathnell leave them little room to do so, however, as undead frequently wander near and attack. So what it boils down to is this is a terrible place to grow pumpkins. You're just constantly getting attacked by stuff. The land is all like destroyed, but you know what? They keep doing it, and I respect that. The commitment to the pumpkin grind. And that's why they're number 4. Number 3 is the Wollerton Steed, and this is a small farmhouse located in the Stormwind City outskirts, and following the burning of Teldrassil, many Kaldori and Gilnean refugees were found here. Darnassus druids were magically growing pumpkins here while volunteer farmhands collected them. So they're literally growing magical pumpkins here, and I think that's awesome. Like they're straight up just magically growing pumpkins. Like, look at that, he's doing it right now. There's also a quest for this place with Robbie Flay in Stormwind, which is a clear reference to Bobby Flay, the Food Network guy. And you just get him pumpkins to make his daughter pumpkin pancakes. So that's it. But really, I just put this on the list because I love the fact that they're growing pumpkins magically. And there's the big tree dude back there looking out. Everybody's helping out. It's a nice, cozy little place. I love that. And that's why it's number 3. Number 2 are the Void Touched pumpkins, and these pumpkins are so high up on the list because they are one of the most unique pumpkins in World of Warcraft. When I saw these, I was like, oh my god, this is an actual unique pumpkin in the game. Like, there's not many of them. Let me tell you, you could probably see just from looking through the list, but I just really like these pumpkins. They're kind of droopy, and they got the void energy coming off of them. They got little like spikes and stuff. And when you eat one and right click on it, you gain a buff named Void Touched Pumpkin, and attacks have a chance to cause shadow damage, and the buff lasts about 30 seconds. And when you're affected by the buff, you gain a purple and black void aura surrounding your legs. But I love the aesthetic of this area. I love the pumpkins themselves being so cool. I mean, they're kind of just like sad and depressed yet empowered. Like, I don't know. It's like a Kelly Clarkson song. And that's why they're number 2. And number 1 is the giant pumpkin in the throne room in the Undercity. Like, first off, giant pumpkin, looking awesome, looking cool. I think it's great, but I just love the fact that it's in the throne room where there's all these whispers of Arthas usurping his father, and it's just like, it has this crazy dark history behind it, and it's like, hey, it's a big pumpkin. Like, imagine if the Karazhan Crypts just had like a big piece of candy corn in it or something. Like, I don't know, that's what it feels like. I don't know, I've always enjoyed walking into the Undercity and seeing that pumpkin there, because it's been there for as long as I can remember during Hollow's End. But I think it's goofy, I think it's fun, and I think it's pretty pointless, which is why I was like, you know what? I think this has got to be number 1. And that is why the Throne Room Pumpkin is number 1. Number 10 is this dwarf skeleton that you find on your way to Wetlands from Dun Moreau. And at first you're just like, oh, that's kind of weird. There's like this skeleton with blood all around. There's like a shield and a broken barrel and a hammer or something. I don't know. And then you're like, all right, but apparently there is a quest, which I think I started kind of remembering from way back when. So I think this was in Classic WoW, where you're supposed to find a missing pilot, and then you go to find him, and it turns out he crashed, and then he got eaten by a bear or something, which, like, dude, that's some bad luck. Not only do you crash your plane, but then you get eaten by a bear, which I think for the quest, you have to kill the bear named the Mangle. Here's a priest actually doing that. At least I think that's what they're doing. I hope so. Otherwise, this is completely infactual. Infactual? Is that even a word? I don't think it is. But either way, I feel like a lot of people have seen this skeleton. I feel like a lot of people have walked past this guy. Some people probably know all about him. Some people probably have no idea. But now you do. And that's number 10. 9. Number 9 is the tree trunk skeleton in the Hillsborough foothills, and this one's a little creepy, honestly. I actually saw this one initially, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty fun one. You know, just chilling in a tree trunk, a random skeleton, but then I realized, like, it's like holding this doll, and at first you're like, maybe this is a kid, but, like, it feels like this looks like a full-grown skeleton, you know what I mean? So I was like, what happened here? There's like a lot of questions I have. And like, why are they hiding in this tree trunk? Are they hiding from somebody? Like, I guess this is just north of Tarn Mill. So like, maybe they were trying to escape the undead, or they're like bordering the Alterac Mountains. Maybe they like ran away from the ogres. Maybe, I don't know. If there's any lore people, I need to ask like Noble or something about this. Like, Noble, look into the tree trunk skeleton, or like theory craft something for me, because this is actually really interesting. And I tried Googling it, and there's only like one thing about it, and they're just like, yeah, it's pretty creepy. So that's number 9. 8. Number 8 are some skeletons that you find on the second floor of the barber shop in Stormwind, and they are really weird. It's like 2 baby gnome creatures holding hands under the floorboards. I don't even know who thought this up. I don't know who thought this up, but apparently I did some research, because I was like, why is this even here? Is this just a goof? Is this something they did for fun? And so back in the day, I found a 13-year ago post that said the barber used to have a name like Sweeney Todd, a reference to Sweeney Todd, the demon barber. They took the name out for probably copyright reasons, and I guess that would explain why there's skeletons there, because, you know, there's a demon barber killing people, I guess. But it's still really weird. Like, even if they just put normal skeletons there, you know what I mean? I'd be like, all right, he's got normal. But it's the fact that it's these weird baby gnomes. And it's like 2 of them, and they're holding hands. Like, what happened? What happened? It's number 8. 7. Number 7 is the Noggenfogger Elixir skeleton, and I feel like this is one of the most notorious skeletons in the game, because I feel like everybody's drank a Noggenfogger Elixir at some point in their World of Warcraft playing days. One thing that I didn't know is how crazy Marin Noggenfogger, the guy who created the elixir, his like backstory is, because when he starts out, you go do the quest, and it's like, oh, okay, you know, you help this guy go get a Douglan, and then you go to Hinterlands, or is it yeah, it's Hinterlands. You go to the Hinterlands, and then Sprinkle whatever's like, go get a thing from Hinterlands, and then you do that, and then you make the Noggenfogger elixir, and then you drink it, and you're like, whoa, you either shrink down, you get like slow fall or something, or you become a skeleton. But in Cataclysm, he becomes the leader of Gadgetzan, and then in Legion, it seems like he has a rogue quest line in the Class Order campaign in the Hall of Shadows. So like, this dude just goes from making a elixir in Gadgetzan and being like, to being like one of the most notorious goblins in World of Warcraft. And to me, that's pretty awesome, and that's one of the reasons why this is number 7. But the other reason is this is just a cool buff. You can drink this, you become a skeleton, you get a whole bunch of animations, you can mount up while you have the buff, and it's great. And it's number 7. 6. Number 6 are these skeleton troll pirate zombies. I had to put it on this list because there's like so many cool things going on with these skeletons. I mean, first, again, they are skeleton trolls that are also pirates, that are also some of the best like animated skeleton models in World of Warcraft. And they're just surrounded by a bunch of gold. All their armor's made of gold, and they're just too good to not include in this list. However, remember, this is a pointless list. I mean, this guy is mining a bug, so that's kind of pointless, but that's why they're not higher up. I mean, I felt like this was a good spot for them, right in the middle. You know, appreciating them for how detailed and cool they are, especially in expansion like BFA, where people weren't so thrilled with everything. But again, the art team killing it in BFA, great stuff. And you know, I think they're just a little too much detail to get higher ranked in this pointless list, but they still deserve to get looked at, and that's why they're number 6. 5. Number 5 is the Isaac Newton skeleton, and I think this is one of the more clever skeletons they actually put into the game. Or just one of the more clever things in general they put in the game. So obviously, Isaac Newton sitting under a tree gets hit in the head with an apple, and he discovers gravity, right? Or that's the story. So in this, obviously, he hasn't discovered gravity because there's a bunch of floating islands all over. So it's like, you know, there's a little bit of humor there. And then there's obviously the stories of like shooting apples off someone's head with a bow. And so it seems like instead of that, they just used an axe to try to get an apple off his head, and it just, you know, sliced his head in two. Which I think is a William Tell story, from what I was looking into. But either way, you know, I think they might even just be killing 2 birds with 1 stone right here with William Tell, Isaac Newton, and just having a good time. Either way, this is a fun little Easter egg skeleton, and that's why it's number 5. 4. Number 4 is the High Mall elevator skeleton, and this one's kind of crazy. I tried to look up stuff on it, and I found absolutely nothing. At first, I thought it was a reference to people dying to, like, the elevator boss, you know what I mean? Getting crushed by the elevator or whatever. But then, just thinking about it more, it seems like they just didn't like somebody. I don't know if it was an ogre, because the skeleton's kind of a big skeleton, so I'd imagine it's an ogre. And they just strapped him up to the bottom of this elevator that goes up and down, and I don't know if he got crushed to death. I don't think he did, because there's like a spike coming out, so I don't think it would crush him. But I think it looks like they just strapped him up to it, and then he just died eventually. Like, that seems like a terrible way to die. Like, you essentially just go up and down constantly, you starve, you get dehydrated, and then, you know, one day you're just dead, and then you just slowly wither away. Ogres are ruthless, man. But if you know anything about this one, let me know, because this might be another one I have to ask Noble about or just look more into, because it's just kind of crazy. Like, is there any ogre lore of them like doing this in books or anything? I have no idea, but I had to put this up on the list, and that's why it's number 4. 3. For number 3, I had to get into my underwater swimming apparatus that I'm using to get close to the whale skeletons down there. It's definitely not me talking into my cupped hands. Either way, there's a lot of theory behind these. There's a big pearl down there, where some people theory crafted that it's involving the puzzle box of Yogg Saron. Other people think it's just some weird dev stuff that they didn't finish working on and left it out there. But either way, it's kind of creepy that you can get this far out and then die in the middle of the ocean. It's a lot of people's fear, especially because, you know, there's the secret people trying to get so close to click that pearl. But even if you click the pearl, you might even die. So I don't even know. Oh, God. Oh, God, we're running out of air. We're running out of air. Oh, boy, we're going to die. 2. Bone Storm. I had to do it. Number 2 is Lord Marrowgar. Lord Marrowgar is the first boss of the Icecrown Citadel, and he was pieced together by the Lich King from the bones of 1,000 vanquished adventurers. So literally, this dude is made up of 1,000 skeletons. Like, that alone should make him one of the greatest skeletons of all time, right? Like, he's literally 1,000 skeletons meshed together by the Lich King and then just, like, made into this crazy raid boss that you fight as the first boss of the Icecrown Citadel. And then he obviously has his notorious Bone Storm ability. So, I mean, how can Lord Marrowgar not be number 1? I guess that's because we're about to find out. 1. And number 1 is the Pointless Top 10 skeleton. That's right, the skeleton that we show at the start of every episode that's inside of this statue, because inside Pointless things are treasure. How could that not be number 1? I figured I would actually take this time, though, to talk a bit about the statue, now that we're actually, you know, talking about it. So this is at Gennaro's Point, which is a small island just outside Booty Bay. Obviously, this big unknown goblin statue is a reference to Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, which, you know, Gennaro's Point, Rio de Janeiro. Yep. Also, this used to be a full-on goblin statue, and then in the Cataclysm, his arm got cut off, and then we were able to see inside that there's a bunch of treasure and a skeleton guy. So, hey, there you go. There's a little bit of lore behind the statue. I don't know much about the skeleton inside, but inside Pointless things are treasure, and he knew that, and he tried to get it, but he died. Wait a second, there's another skeleton back there. I never even noticed that one. Oh well, it's not as cool. The main one's got a sword in its mouth, so it's just cooler by law. So yeah. 10. Number 10 are the mechanical farmhands, which are harvest golems located at the Amber Waves in the Stormsong Valley. And I think these are really cool harvest golems. They're kind of an updated version of the harvest golem that got put in there in Battle for Azeroth. But the reason that I have them at number 10 is because I came here being like, dude, Stormsong Valley is going to have some scarecrows, right? Like I was looking around, there's so much farmland here. I was like, there's bound to be some scarecrows. And there was literally 0 scarecrows. I was blown away. I was like, dude, are you kidding me? Like out of all the zones where there could be scarecrows, you would think you'd find at least one here, right? Like there's plenty of birds flying around. We're near the ocean. Actually, I guess I see more butterflies, but there's probably birds. I actually don't know if there's crows near the ocean, but there's like other birds near the ocean, right? They'd probably try eating the crops. In fact, according to Google, it says that crows are often in open areas like fields, open woodlands, farms, pastures, and shores. So yeah, they would be near here. So yeah, the harvest golems are cool. I like their new models. Well, they're not even really new. They're kind of the old new models, but there should be at least a couple scarecrows here. And so that's why I had to put them at number 10. 9. Number 9 is a scarecrow located in Fallhaven in Drustvar. And I put this on the list not because I wanted to show off this old classic looking scarecrow, which they are on the list, don't worry, but they have a bunch of wicker men located around here. And so in my mind, I was like, dude, why didn't they just use these big wicker men statues as scarecrows? Well, I guess that would be a little overkill, but you can make like tinier versions of it, right? But I also wanted to use this opportunity to show off these cool big wicker men because they're kind of like scarecrows, you know what I mean? But it's got like a moving head, almost like when you go to a restaurant and you see like a moving head of like a moose or something. I don't know, but it's got antlers. There's actually some birds flying around it. Maybe that's why you don't put this out there. Maybe the birds would actually be attracted to the weird wicker man thing. And you know, nothing against the scarecrow. You know, he's doing his job. He looks cool, but I'm just saying they had some better options. They could have went with those, but that's why I had to put him at number 9. 8. Number 8 is Ichabod, and Ichabod is a baby harvest golem that was obtainable for viewers who gifted at least 2 Twitch subscriptions to creators from November of 2022 to December of 2022, which you better have gifted those to me, all right? But I like Ichabod. You know, he's a little baby harvest golem. He's got a little pumpkin on his head, which I think is fun. According to the pet journal, he was tinkered with by the gnomes, which have made him far less likely to attack your knees, which is pretty funny. And so, listen, there's not that many scarecrows and harvest golems in World of Warcraft, so I was like, Ichabod's gonna make this list, all right? He's one of the most unique harvest golems in the game because he was the first baby version of a harvest golem added to the game, and I was like, you know what? I like him. Fun little guy. I gotta put him on the list, and so that's why Ichabod is number 8. 7. Number 7 are the scarecrows located at Beladar's Bounty in Hallowfall. And the reason I like this scarecrow is it's an updated version of the classic scarecrow. It's kind of got that same feel to it. They gave it a different hat, but it's very much a redone version of the old classic scarecrow. In fact, I thought this would be a great time to talk about scarecrow history. So according to Wikipedia, a scarecrow is a decoy or mannequin that is often in the shape of a human. Humanoid scarecrows are usually dressed in old clothes and placed in open fields to discourage birds from disturbing and feeding on recently cast seed and growing crops. Machinery such as windmills have been employed as scarecrows, but the effectiveness lessens as animals become familiar with structures. And apparently there's much better methods now than using scarecrows, such as aluminized pet films that you tie onto the plants to produce shimmers from the sun, or some people use inflatable tube men. So that's right, those big tube men you see at car dealers are literally being used used as scarecrows, so that's kind of weird, but I guess it makes sense. But either way, that's why the Beladar's Bounty Scarecrows are number 7. 6. Number 6 is the Haywire Golem located in Drustvar. And the Haywire Golem is a part of a world quest where you have to kill the Haywire Golem, and that's it, because if you couldn't tell, it's gone haywire, right? It's actually killed some of the farmers here. At least that's what you can piece together. They don't really give you any lore or reason. They're not like, the farmers got killed by the Haywire Golem. They're just like, go kill it. Something's going wrong over there. Like, they genuinely don't tell you anything about it. But I guess you can piece it all together from just looking around and being like, damn, this golem's gone haywire. I also just really like the aesthetic of this area. You have like the farmland, but you also have the mountains in the background and the barren trees and just, I don't know. I just think it's a really cool area, aside from, you know, the hanging bodies. But if you look past that, it's a really nice place. And, you know, the harvest golem going haywire and killing everybody. But either way, that's why the Haywire Golem is number 6. 5. Number 5 are the Scarecrows located in the Valley of the Four Winds in the Mists of Pandaria. And this is definitely one of the more unique Scarecrows in World of Warcraft. You can obviously tell it's from Mists of Pandaria. It has the Sedge Hat, I believe is what it's called. It's got some bamboo arms. It's got, the body is made out of, I think, like a bag you would store vegetables or whatever produce in. And one of the Scarecrows even has a kite attached to it. It looks like there's I almost said dragon. That's definitely not a dragon. That's a crane. It has a crane attached to it. At least I'm pretty sure that's a crane. And obviously there's plenty of these scarecrows all around because the Valley of the Four Winds is loaded with farms and farmland, and there's plenty of birds flying around as well, so they gotta keep those birds away. So I like Mist of Pandaria, I like the Valley of the Four Winds, and I like these scarecrows, so that's why I put them at number 5. 4. Number 4 is the Arakoa Scarecrow located next to the Void-Touched Pumpkins in the Shadow Moon Valley. And I'm so happy we finally got a Scarecrow that isn't just kind of a generic, you know, human-looking Scarecrow. Like, we actually have an Arakoa Scarecrow, dude. I love this. And I remember I was flying around Spires of Iraq and I saw these bird statue scarecrow-looking things, and I was like, dude, it would be so cool if they used these as scarecrows. These would be the perfect scarecrows, but I couldn't find any. It was just kind of like shrines and stuff like that. Like, you can see right there's a bunch of them in the Spires of Iraq just sitting around, and I was like, I think that'd be so cool. And then I fly over to Shadow Moon Valley and I see this and I was like, there it is. I love it. I'm so happy we actually have it. It's kind of ironic because it's like a bird scarecrow to chase away the birds, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I really love the Scarecrow, and I knew I wanted to put it higher up on the list because of all the things I just mentioned, and so I did, and that's why it's number 4. 3. Number 3 is the Scarecrow located in Val'sharah, and it's actually just kind of a normal Scarecrow, kind of like the one we saw back in Drustvar, but he's wearing a top hat and a suit. And this is a Scarecrow that you can actually find in Gilneas. You can also find it in New Arathi Highlands. But I chose Val'sharah because unlike many of the other Scarecrows we've seen, this Scarecrow is actually actively doing its job. Although I don't know how well he's doing his job, because with all these birds flying around, there are some that are just like chilling in the fields, like chilling by the Scarecrow. Like maybe they don't really care about Scarecrows, but you know what? At least he's giving it an attempt. And so that's kind of why I put this guy so high up on the list at number 3. Because not only is he a Scarecrow wearing a top hat and a suit, but he's actively doing his job as a Scarecrow. There's all these birds flying around, so he's clearly needed there, even if he's not, you know, scaring them away, but he's trying to, and it's a very Scarecrow type of scene with the dark clouds and all the corn, and I think it's really fitting for Scarecrows, and so that's why I had to put him at number 3. 2. Number 2 is the Foe Reaper 4000 and the Foe Reaper 5000, and both of these are located in Westfall, although one is in the Deadmines. And so the Foe Reaper 4000 is a rare mob that'll appear randomly every 4 to 6 hours in Westfall, while the 5000 is an elite harvest golem in the Deadmines, and it is an upgraded model of the Foe Reaper 4000. And I thought this would be a good spot to actually talk about harvest golems in general, because nobody really knows the origin of harvest golems. Some people theorize that the goblins created them, but a lot of people speculate that the Defias Brotherhood had harvest golems built to scare off local inhabitants of Westfall so that they could run their smuggling operations. And then later on, the Alliance just started to use them for their own, like we saw in Stormsong Valley, or they're also in Borean Tundra, Drustvar, pretty much a whole bunch of Alliance farms. And so yeah, the harvest golems are really cool. They resemble Scarecrows, although much deadlier than actual Scarecrows, especially the Foe Reapers, and that's why I put them at number 2. 1. And number 1 is the classic World of Warcraft Scarecrow. And this is the one you see in Westfall, you see it all over the places of classic World of Warcraft, Elwyn Forest, Arathi Highlands, Duskwood, it's all over. And he's just got some raggedy clothes with a pumpkin head and a hat. And even if it's not the most appealing Scarecrow, I think it really is the embodiment of a Scarecrow, especially with the pumpkin head. And I'd also include the Westfall Harvest Golems here because they are probably the most well-known Harvest Golems in the game. These are the Harvest Golems you would see leveling up your Alliance characters at like level 12 or whatever it is, so I'd also include them as a part of this at number 1. And like I mentioned previously, you know, this is the most common Scarecrow in World of Warcraft, to the point where you can see this used in like Battle for Azeroth, and so they finally updated the Scarecrow in the War Within, and it definitely was time for an update, but I still appreciate the old one and the Harvest Golems, and so that's why they're number 1. 10. Number 10 are the Flesh-Sown Savages and the Razor Thread Haulers located in Maldraxxus. And these are these weird-looking little abomination type guys. And from what I read, they are leftover abominations. So I guess they just didn't work out, and now they're made to do all of the dirty work, essentially. So you've got them, like, digging up or digging through bodies. I don't know what they're doing. And then you've got the other ones like hauling around thread, which, you know, razor thread, which is, I imagine, how they stitch together all the abominations. So I never even really knew about these guys. I barely quested in Maldraxxus, and I think if I did, I didn't even remember this, but I actually think they're really fun and goofy. I really like the ones holding the thread where they're like, bah, 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 bah. They're just hauling around these big spools of thread. And so one of the reasons I love Pointless Top 10 is I get to find all these things that people have forgotten about or didn't even know were in the game. And so I had to put these little weird abomination guys on the list because, I mean, who's going to Maldraxxus anyway? And so that's why the Razor Thread Haulers and Flesh-Sown Savages are number 10. 9. Number 9 are the Undercity Guardians, and these guys don't have any names. There's no special Undercity Guardians, well, at least that I know of, but most of them are just walking around guarding the Undercity. And how could you not remember these guys, right? Whether you're going by the elevator and about to get crushed by it, or going down into the Undercity and you bypass them when they're standing right near the little hallways and stuff, or out in the courtyard. Like, these guys are all over, and dating all the way back to classic WoW, like, I remember seeing these Undercity Guardians, and it's one of the things I first noticed when I would go into the Undercity. And I learned from Wowhead that they actually have some funny little interactions. So if you ask them where the mage trainer is, they'll say, "They's in the magic corner. Look for them in Scary Skull Building." And if you ask for the paladin trainer, "Us no like paladins. Elf lady come to city, stay in royal quarter. Her paladin. You talk, learn paladin things." And if you ask for the alchemist, they say, "Dr. Herbert Halsey in the apothecarium where us was born. Him could sew you back together like us." And so yeah, I love the Undercity Guardians. I think they're great, and that's why they're number 9. 8. Number 8 is Rammstein the Gorger, and Rammstein is located in Stratholme, and according to the Dungeon Journal, Rammstein is one of the Scourge's most infamous abominations, a horror stitched together from numerous corpses and empowered by a ceaseless hunger. This monster committed unspeakable atrocities on countless innocent souls when Scourge forces overran Stratholme. He's also responsible for the death of Lord Nathanos Maris, who you might know better as Nathanos Blightcaller. And it seems pretty obvious to me that this is a reference to the band Rammstein. I mean, it might not be, but knowing Blizzard's taste in music, especially back then, it seems like it definitely is. But then I read here that it says it may also be a reference to the airshow disaster at the town of Rammstein, particularly considering the lightning bolts that drop off his loot table. But then after learning that, I learned that the band Rammstein is actually named after the airshow disaster at Rammstein. So really, it all just like comes full circle. But either way, that's why Rammstein the Gorger is number 8. 7. Number 7 is Bitsy, and Bitsy is an abomination innkeeper located at Hirawatha Research Station in the Hinterlands. And Bitsy is very small, especially compared to many of the other abominations. Bitsy is, well, you could say itsy bitsy, right? Because it's like the itsy bitsy spider, so it's like itsy bitsy, it's like tiny, right? That's the reference that they're doing here. And if you feel like you've already seen Bitsy before in a Pointless Top 10, that's because you have. Bitsy was in Pointless Top 10 food vendors, and actually Bitsy could have been in Pointless Top 10 innkeepers as well. Bitsy's doing everything. And in addition to allowing you to make this place your home, Bitsy sells tough jerky, haunches of meat, mutton chops, wild hog shanks, cured ham steaks, and roasted quail, although I don't know if I'd want to eat any of this meat. Doesn't look very sanitary, but hey, you know what? It's the thought that counts, right? But I had to put Bitsy on this list because Bitsy's just a really unique abomination. I don't think there's any abominations in the game that are as small as Bitsy outside of, you know, battle pets or something, which are just small because that's how they have to be. Like, Bitsy is just a genuinely small abomination, and that's pretty cool. So that's why Bitsy is number 7. 6. Number 6 is the Rayget's monstrosity, and the Rayget's monstrosity is a flesh beast located in the sludge fields of the Hillsbird foothills. And if you don't know what a flesh beast is, it is a mutated abomination, which are powerful abomination constructs of the Scourge. And according to Master Apothecary Lydon, it was pieced together out of 3 farmers, which you can actually see in classic World of Warcraft, which were Farmer Ray, Farmer Getz, and Farmer Kalaba. And you know, after playing classic WoW quite a bit, especially classic hardcore, and having to kill Farmer Ray, Getz, and Kalaba over and over, I'm actually not too upset that this is what happened to them. Because they were like pretty annoying to deal with, and they were surrounded by stuff. I don't know, like whatever. At least now they're just a big giant abomination thing, which, you know, that sucks for them, but what are you gonna do? But that's one of the reasons I decided to put it on the list, is I think this was a cool little side story that they did with, you know, turning Farmer Ray, Getz, and Kalaba into this weird mutated abomination. I just think it was pretty neat, so that's why it's number 6. 5. Number 5 is Corpulus, and Corpulus is an abomination in Acaris the Ebonhold, and he serves as Acaris's mess hall chef and has written a book enumerating his rules for the mess hall called Corpulus's Mess Hall Rules. Now, I looked all over for this book. I looked upstairs, downstairs, on the tables, like all over, and I could not find it. And it was like, oh, it's right next to him. But he like walks around, and I genuinely couldn't find this book. But I did find it online. So I'm going to read some excerpts to you, because why not? All right, we've got Corpulus, great cook of Acaris, who make good food for you. He proud to feed mighty Scourge and make stronger. No make Corpulus mad, he no feed you. Rules. Death Knight eat first, Ghoul wait turn. No eat Ghoul next to you, need clean plate first. Okay, eat with hands or swords, no eat hands or swords. Zombie need try more food, think outside the brains, no eat self. And there's some other ones in there, but I think you get the picture. I will say that they had the opportunity to give him some unique items to sell, but they didn't really do that. He just has some generic stuff, so that kind of sucked, but he's still pretty cool, so that's why Corpulus is number 5. 4. Number 4 are Rotface, Festergut, Precious, and Stinky. I decided to just package them all together because, I mean, they are all in the same wing in Icecrown Citadel. And, I mean, listen, these are some of the most iconic abominations you're going to find. 2 dog creature abominations, and then Rotface and Festergut, who are the mutated abominations we talked about from earlier, but these are created by Professor Putricide. And I don't know about you, but I always felt bad killing Precious and Stinky. Like, it's their pets, right? And they're just walking around, and then you kill them, and they're just like, Precious, no! And then he's like, you killed Stinky, you pay. Like, I don't know, it feels bad. Like, they're sad. They're already these big mutated abominations, and now we're killing their pets on top of it. But like I said earlier, these are probably some of the most well-known abominations in the game, and so I had to put them on the list, and that's why Precious, Stinky, Rotface, and Festergut are all number 4. 3. Number 3 is Margrave Garmal, and Margrave Garmal was the leader of the House of Constructs, which is one of the 5 Necrolord houses in Maldraxxus. And he is a massive abomination that possesses the power to shape flesh in ways that few other beings could. And this is another one of those things where, as much as I didn't really like Shadowlands, they got some pretty cool stuff, like the art, the design, like so much cool stuff is in Shadowlands, and this guy's no exception. He's got this massive tube in his gut. And you know what? He kind of looks like a cooler version of the Goblin King from The Hobbit. Like, if you look up Goblin King Hobbit right now, you can compare him and be like, dude, he kind of does look like a cooler Goblin King. He also has these 2 insane guards that have crazy weapon hands, and they're almost like roided out abominations in a way, right? If you go back and look at all the old abominations and then these, you're like, damn, these are some crazy abominations. It's like Uruk-hai compared to the orcs. We're going all out with the Lord of the Rings references. And so yeah, I think they're pretty cool. Again, you know, for Shadowlands being as bad as it was, there is some cool stuff in there, and this is one of those things. So that's why Margrave Garmal is number 3. 2. Number 2 is Patchwork, and Patchwork is the first boss of the Construct Order in Naxxramas, and out of all the fights in the game, I think when people think of Tank and Spank or a gear check fight, this is probably the fight that you think of. And Patchwork originally appeared as a boss in classic Naxxramas, the one before Wrath of the Lich King, and is one of Kel'Thuzad's most powerful abominations. His strength and speed came as a shock to those that faced him in combat. And so, I mean, thematically, he does make sense as a tank and spank fight, right? Like, he's just this massive abomination. He's strong, he's gonna hit hard, but he's an abomination. He doesn't have much going on up there. Also, I didn't realize that there's an EverQuest reference in here. So when you aggro Patchwork, he says, Kel'Thuzad make Patchwork his avatar of war. And it turns out the avatar of war refers to the EverQuest boss of the same name. And the boss had a similar ability to Hateful Strike, which is one of Patchwork's abilities, and that it would unleash massive damage to the tank, which would have to be healed through. And so yeah, how could I not put Patchwork high up on this list? And that's why Patchwork is number 2. And number 1 is Stitches, and Stitches is probably the most well-known abomination in the game, because I mean, even if you're a low-level player, you probably have a point where you were in Darkshire walking around and all of a sudden Stitches came running through and killed you, right? And I talked about this a bit in Pointless Top 10 Creepy NPCs, but Abercrombie the Embalmer creates Stitches as a gift for the mayor of Darkshire, sending him to terrorize the town. And you actually help Abercrombie create Stitches unknowingly. He's just like, go get me this, go get me that. And you're like, okay, it's a quest. And then the mayor's like, listen, I know you were helping him, but you shouldn't have done that. And then Stitches comes rolling in like, blah, 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 blah. And so that's pretty much it. Stitches is created as an act of vengeance to terrorize the town. But Stitches, again, really one of the most iconic abominations in the game. Most people have seen Stitches walking around and been like, oh, don't get near him, or they've been killed by Stitches, right? He is pretty much the OG Fell Reaver from Hellfire Peninsula. And so Stitches had to be on this list. And I was like, you know what? I think he's number 1. And so that's why Stitches is number 1. 10. Number 10 is the Bubbling Cauldron at Gromgal Base Camp. And I picked this cauldron because I wanted a basic cauldron on this list. And this is probably one of my favorite ones because I always think of this one because there's so many quests tied into it at Gromgal. It looks cool. It's got the green steam coming out or whatever it is. I don't know. And it's got the skulls already in there because there's a bunch of skull quests you have to do with this cauldron. It's located right next to Nimboya. And Nimboya is a jungle troll located here, and he's come from Orgrimmar to search for his chief's youngest son, Yenneku. Believing him to be in possession of the Bloodscalp trolls, he wants the head of their witch doctor, Nesliak the Dire, so he can force the whereabouts of his quarry from his dead lips. Ultimately, the adventurers are able to retrieve his soul, although his body is still under Zanzel the Outcast control. It's a giant quest line. There's so much stuff going on here, but I really think this cauldron's cool. You know, it's from classic WoW. It dates way back. It's got a lot of stuff tied to it. So, you know, it's not the craziest, but I think it's pretty neat. So that's why it's number 10. 9. Number 9 is this creepy cauldron in Dire Mall. And this is one I've seen referenced a lot all over because there is a dead man impaled in it on some sort of stick or something. I don't know, but it's weird to find things like this in World of Warcraft because you don't normally expect it, but it's creepy. Like, I think ogres did this, probably that ogre right over there. But I was trying to figure out if there'd be any lore reason for this. Like, did the ogres really hate somebody and they're like, we're gonna cook that guy up, right? Or, you know, did somebody do something? Was there, I don't know. So I was looking into it and there's absolutely nothing. I think it's just the ogres got mad and they decided to cook somebody. But I did find one thing. So I was like, maybe if I look into the ogre Warcraft wiki page, it'll be something. And I found under cuisine, when eating humans, ogres prefer to devour them alive due to it being fresher. When it is cooked, however, the body is cooked with the blood still inside the carcass. Night elf meat is considered as tasting horrible. On top of that, the staple diet of ogres is fresh meat. Ogres like their food fresh and are thus known to keep their prisoners alive until they are ready to serve. So those are references to the World of Warcraft official cookbook, not the strongest of lore sources. But hey, you know what? It's something. And I don't think it really explains this at all because they still are like cooking him alive. I don't know. But I think that was cool to find out. So that's why the Dire Mall Cauldron is number 9. 8. Number 8 is the Ruby Feast Cauldron. And the Ruby Feast is located in Valdrakken. And it actually is an achievement where you have to experience all of the dishes served at the Ruby Feast, ranging from lemon silverleaf tea all the way to druidic dream salad and ravenberry panna cotta delight. But that's besides the point. The main point here is the cauldron, and the cauldron's really cool. It's more of a flat cauldron as opposed to a lot of the rounder cauldrons. It hangs from these big chains attached way up in the ceiling, and in fact, the chef that's putting stuff into the cauldron, he has to stand on boxes to throw things into the cauldron. Now, I don't actually know what they're making in the cauldron, because I was looking through all the different things that you can taste, and I guess maybe it'd be lemon silverleaf tea, or maybe dragon fruit punch. It could actually be dragon fruit punch. That looks like, although I think dragon fruit's more like pinkish, right? Pinkish red. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The main point here is that the cauldron looks really cool, and it's in this big outdoor kitchen, and I think it's a really cool area. The aesthetic's really nice, and that's why the Ruby Feast cauldron is number 8. 7. Number 7 are the Zandalari Voodoo Cauldrons, and the Voodoo Cauldrons are blue, red, green, and purple cauldrons found on the Isle of Reckoning in Kunlai Summit. And up until I made this video, I actually had no idea that this even existed. Like, straight up. This is from Mist of Pandaria, and I had no idea this was a thing. So the main thing here is that you can actually interact with the cauldron. So the Voodoo Brew is dressed like a Zandalari witch doctor. Zandalari trolls think you're friendly, dance with your fellow witch doctors. The mysteriously tasty concoction is mastery increased by 9 for 1 hour. The Hexer's Touch is attacks have a chance to hex your target, and the Maggot Slurry is you don't feel so great. But not only do these cauldrons provide fun little interactions, but they've actually got cool steam coming from each one. And after looking into it a bit more, it just seems that these are kind of pointless, but it's like how he said, inside pointless things are treasure. These are just fun little interactions that you discover out in the world. And, you know, there's no achievements, no quests, but it's fun. It's fun to explore and see little things like this and be like, wow, that was really cool. And that's why the Zandalari Voodoo Cauldrons are number 7. 6. Number 6 is the Cursed Cauldron in the Hellfire Peninsula in front of Zethgor. And this is an objective of the Bleeding Hollow Blood quest, where you boil the blood for the quest Boiling Blood. And when you use the cauldron with the blood, a large number of cursed scarabs appear, and then they scurry around, and you can just kill them. But I always remember doing this quest in Burning Crusade, and it also has that kind of cool colored steam coming out of it, much like the voodoo cauldrons we just talked about. But I love how this cauldron is just going insane. It's just like... And I always just remember doing this quest and thinking like, wow, that cauldron is going crazy, man. Like that blood is really boiling in there. And you know, it's a bit bigger than some of the other cauldrons we've seen, so that's pretty cool as well. But I'm not gonna lie, the main reason I wanted this cauldron on the list is because I just have nostalgia doing this quest. And I don't even think I like doing the quest that much, but for some reason, whenever I think of cauldrons, this is one of the quests that I think of. And so I was like, you know what? It's gotta be on the list. And that's why the Cursed Cauldron is number 6. 5. Number 5 is the Communal Pot Cauldron at the Tuscar area in the Azure Span. And this is where Big Canuck, the master of soups, does the big Tuscar soup event thing, and everyone helps him make soup, and it's a great time. I also always have to mention that it used to be master of stews, and through the power of my Pointless Top 10 Azure Span video back in the beta, helped change it from stew to soup based on my intense research of the two types of food. So really, I helped impact World of Warcraft in a massive way, because could you imagine Master of Stews? It would be wrong. Anyway, aside from that, we're here to talk about the actual cauldron, which is fantastic. It's got all the ropes going around it. It's got the hooks off the side. It's got the ropes that are like tying it down. It's got the fish hanging off the side too. I love the aesthetic of this whole cauldron and the whole area. I mean, just think of this big pot of soup in this ice cold environment. Everyone's like huddled up and they're like, dude, the big soup, right? This big boiling cauldron pot is just that warmth, that hearth that you're looking for, right? Did I use the word hearth correctly there? I don't think I did, but you kind of get the point. I also love the feast animation they go through because it reminds me of Monster Hunter a lot, and I'm someone that's really bad at Monster Hunter, but I always love the aesthetic of it as well, so I always appreciate that, and that's why the Communal Pot Cauldron is number 5. 4. Number 4 is this giant cauldron in Razorfen Kraul, and I found this cauldron because somebody posted on the internet them getting stuck in it with their party in Razorfen Kraul, and I was like, dude, there's a big cauldron in Razorfen Kraul, so I went and found it, and it's actually pretty sweet. They got a bunch of lumber and wood all over. They got a little cauldron next to the big cauldron. I don't really know why. There's like a big platform that leads up to it, obviously, so they can like throw stuff in it. I don't know if one of them's cooking like a sauce, and the other big one's cooking like the main thing. Like, I don't know what they're cooking in there. Just, are they going full Dire Maul ogre and cooking people in there? Are they like, what are they doing? So I actually looked up Quillbore eating, because we may as well just look up what everybody eats at this point. And the Quillbore and the Barrens are protective of the water in the area. Even a small water source is a vast hoard of wealth to them. They have great feasts when even the slightest rain comes to the Barrens. Water is sacred to their kind because it is so scarce. So again, that really tells us absolutely nothing. So like, I don't know what they're doing. Are they throwing boars in this pot? I don't know. They're doing something with it. If you have any theories about what they're cooking in this big pot, or I just missed something, let me know in the comment section below. Maybe there's something in RFK that I completely missed for why they have this big cauldron in there. But either way, it's a really cool big cauldron, and that's why it's number 4. Number 3 is the Half Hill Market Cauldron in the Valley of the Four Winds, next to Mei Mei Ironpaw and Noodles the Hosen. And from the looks of it, it looks like they're cooking up some noodles and maybe tofu. It looks like big blocks of tofu or something, I guess, but I have no idea. But I think this cauldron looks really cool. It's got the gold plating around the outside, and I think it's more stone than it is anything else, which I think a stone cauldron's actually pretty sick. One thing I did find weird is that Noodles sells spices, sagefish delight recipe, smoked sagefish recipe, spring water, and simple flour. So it doesn't actually sell any noodles, but I guess he sells you the flour to make noodles, but I was expecting Noodles to sell me more noodles, so a little disappointing there, but that's besides the point. The main point here is that the cauldron is really cool, and then I just love the aesthetic of the Valley of the Four Winds, especially the Half Hill Market, right? You've got all the different foods all around, you've got everybody cooking, you've got the, you know, just green everywhere. Everything just feels very fresh and vibrant. And I love this area. I think Valley of the Four Winds is maybe one of my favorite places in World of Warcraft at this point. Another fun fact is that Mei Mei Ironpaw actually traveled to Iskara in Azure Span on the Dragon Isles. So she's probably helping the chef with the soup. I didn't even realize that. So a little tie-in right there. But overall, I love this cauldron. I love this area, and that's why I had to put it high up on the list, and that's why it's number 3. Ooh. Number 2 is the Cauldron of Creation in Maldraxxus, and this is where you craft a plague-born slime from in Maraleth's Cauldron. So it's the Cauldron of Creation, but it's also Plague Divisor Maraleth's Cauldron, and he says, "While I know we're both eager to complete our potion, I believe the best lesson I can share with you is patience, and slimes, of course. With the help of slimes, we'll have our laboratory back in working condition." So pretty much you help him get his lab back in order, and I love that the little slimes also have their own little cauldrons on top of their head. That's one of the reasons I moved it up the list, because I was like, dude, I love the little slime cauldron guys. Then there's just big slime man chilling out. It's honestly kind of a cool quest. It's one of those things where it happened in Shadowlands, so either I forgot about it completely or I never did it. It's one of the two. But apparently Plague Divisor Maraleth is a prominent necromancer of the House of Plagues, and he was a close confidant of Margrave Stratama, who was the final boss of Plaguefall. She's the big like slime queen lady, but was driven insane by the fallout of his house's destruction and mistakenly believes adventurers to be his apprentice. But overall, I mean, this is a cool cauldron. It's got that, you know, standard cauldron vibe, very round, kind of pumpkin looking, but it's got the little gold things on it, like the gold plated, I don't know, decals or whatever you want to call them. And then I love just the skeleton hands kind of holding them up as well. I think it's a very creepy, cool cauldron. And I love the little cauldrons on the slime guys. So that's why it's number 2. And number 1 are the plague cauldrons in the Western Plague Lands. And when I thought up this list, the first cauldrons that came to mind were these cauldrons. Like, whenever I think of a cauldron in World of Warcraft, these are the cauldrons that I think of. Just these big, smoking, bubbling cauldrons held down by the chains in the farmlands of Western Plague Lands. So, plague cauldrons are giant cauldrons filled with vile toxins and poisons of the Scourge. Infused with the necromantic sorcery of Kel'Thuzad, these cauldrons are constantly boiling and spewing the plague of undeath into the air, corrupting and twisting the land and empowering the agents of the Scourge. Each of the cauldrons has its own unique mix of toxins and is guarded by a cauldron lord with a retinue of formidable Scourge soldiers. The enchanted cauldrons were masterminded by the necromancer Hagen the Unclean. That's right, the safety dance guy. And in preparation for the siege on the Northlands, the cauldrons were moved to Kel'Thuzad's recent acquisition, the Barov Manor on Seir Darrow, Scolamance, where the Plague of Undeath was perfected within them. Using samples from the Cauldrons, Kel'Thuzad began to poison the grain shipments exported from Anderhall, thus dooming the populace of Lordaeron to the plague. After Arthas's final purge of the region, the Cauldrons were ordered to be placed in the various fields around Anderhall by Araj the Summoner to help support the Scourge forces in the area. So actually really interesting lore. I didn't know any of that until I read into it, but you think I would as somebody who's played WoW for like almost 20 years, right? But you always learn something, and that's what I always enjoy with these videos as well. But overall, they're just really cool Cauldrons. They're very nostalgic, very memorable, and actually very lore related, I guess. So that's why the Plague Cauldrons are number 1. 10. Number 10 is Admiral Taylor's farm, and Admiral Taylor's farm is located in the Spires of Arak in Draenor. And you can see right here, it really is this little farm that's kind of tucked away in the hillside right behind Admiral Taylor's garrison. And so pretty much what happens here is Admiral Taylor gets invited to go see some Ring of Blood arena battles, and he's like, awesome, man, I'm gonna go see those. But then his subordinate Ethiel takes control of the garrison, and he's a necromancer, and Admiral Taylor comes back from the Ring of Blood arena battles. He's like, yo, that was fun. And then he's like, yo, what happened? Like, what's going on here? And then Ethiel has turned everyone into ghosts, and they're all dead, and then he turns Admiral Taylor into the Bone Wraith Soul Scythe. And then eventually you end up killing Ethiel and Soul Scythe, and Admiral Taylor's spirit joins you at your Alliance garrison. You're also able to find Ethiel's Dark Grimoire inside the house. So yeah, I mean, overall, this is just a really weird, kind of creepy farm, but I think it's a pretty unique farm in World of Warcraft. Not many farms in WoW have like necromancers and like crazy stuff going on. Apparently Ethiel is also a reference to Ephialtes of Trachis, who betrayed the Greeks during the famous Battle of Thermopylae in the Greco-Persian War. But yeah, overall it's a pretty unique farm in an odd location, and that's why Admiral Taylor's farm is number 10. 9. Number 9 is the Akanet Fields, and the Akanet Fields are a large farming area south of the Vernal Dam in Uldum. And there's a few reasons that I love this farm, one of which is it's just very unique, especially to World of Warcraft, where we have so many of your like standard farms that you would think of when you think of farms, right? Well, this one is based off of Egypt, so you know, we have like the little channels with water in them, and we have the Ramkahen laborers just harvesting the crops out here. It's not something you see all the time in World of Warcraft. But then in addition to that, we have the corrupted Akanet Fields, where, you know, it's the same thing, but everything's kind of dead and dried up, and we have the, you know, the corruption just spreading, and we have all the monsters and the tentacles all over. And I think that just adds another layer to this farm, right? Because this is a farm that has been taken over by corruption and N'Zoth stuff, and so not many farms get corrupted by an old god, so I felt like that alone was worth putting it on the list for. Either way, that's why the Akanet Fields are number 9. 8. Number 8 are the Goshek Farm and the Debris Farmstead located in the Arathi Highlands. And I put these farms on the list because whenever I think of farms, I always think of these two farms. I always think of questing back in Classic WoW in the Arathi Highlands and going to these farms. And I remember there's the quest where the undead has you like go get all the heads from the Debris Farmstead people. And I was like, what actually happens there? Because a lot of times I would just do the quest and be like, whatever. But it says the Forsaken Genevieve Callow had a grudge against the Debris because they managed to survive and prosper after the Third War, while Genevieve lost her family to the plague, and her estate was looted and burned. In addition, the Debris stole the only precious belongings she had left to her after being raised to undeath. She wanted them dead, and so she sends you, the Horde adventurers, to kill them. Meanwhile, the Goshek farm is being used by the Forsaken and the Orcs, where the Forsaken are using it as a testing ground for their alchemical experiments, and the Orcs are just using it for supplies. There's also a whole bunch of stuff that happened here after the Cataclysm and Battle for Azeroth, and obviously it all got updated, but whenever I think of the Arathi Highlands farms, I always think of the old classic version. So that's kind of what I wanted to put up here. So that's why the Goshek farm and the Debris Farmstead are number 8. 7. Number 7 is the Amber Waves, and the Amber Waves is a large farmstead located west of Brennadum in Stormsong Valley. And I knew I wanted to put a farm from Stormsong Valley on this list because I just love Stormsong Valley. It's one of my favorite zones that they've ever made. I love the hills and the trees and the green and just everything about it, right? And so there's so many farms in this whole area, but this specific area is the one that I remember the most, I would say, and there's a few reasons for that. Number one is this is the Amber Waves, which makes sense because it's just waves of wheat, right? There's just a whole bunch of wheat all over, and it says here that wheat is often amber colored, especially when it ripens and is ready for harvest. And so yeah, I just thought that was really cool, seeing the waves of wheat all over contrasting with the green grass. And then we also have the Quillboar attacking, and the Quillboar have dug tunnels underneath all the the farmland, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, and so you have to go fight the Quillboars, and I always remember doing that quest line. And so overall, just really cool farmland in Stormsong Valley. There's plenty of other farms in Stormsong Valley that are really cool as well, but I just picked this one, so that's why the Amber Waves are number 7. 6. Number 6 are the Sludge Fields, and the Sludge Fields is a Forsaken fortification built over the Hillsbred Fields, which I'm sure many people remember from Classic WoW as the big farmland area where you did a bunch of quests. Well, now it's been turned into a prison for the captured humans of Lordaeron, where they're sent to do labor, or I guess they're just planted as seeds. For the quest Do the Right Thing, it says, "You have come upon a horrific scene. Someone or something has buried all of these humans up to their necks in a manner consistent with planting. The ghouls, which are seemingly tending the field of human seedlings, periodically jump to the nearest human and devour its head. You can end this right here and now. Take this shovel and save the humans." And so yeah, this is a very unconventional farm. Obviously, they are, planting human seeds, which are literally just humans, I mean, they're undead, right? They're just like, plant the humans, whatever, right? But it's still a farm, right? It used to be a farm. Now it's more of like a Forsaken farm, and it's just very unique and unconventional. And that's one of my favorite things to find, is unique and unconventional stuff that you don't normally see in World of Warcraft. So that's why the Sludge Fields are number 6. 5. Number 5 is the Draxora Fields, and the Draxora Fields are it's Draxotra. Oh my god, I've been getting it wrong this whole time. It's Draxotra Fields. It's like The Simpsons, where he's like, I've been calling her Crandall. The Draxotra Fields are Drakari farmlands found southwest of Draxotra and south of the Argent Stand in Zuldrak. And it's actually here where the trolls are planting and harvesting water poppy. But in the grand scheme of things, this is another one of those unique, unconventional types of farms that we don't see very often in World of Warcraft, right? Like, there's all this water all over, and there's the big irrigation bridges with the water pouring over the top, and some of it's like sliding down the sides and the little water sled things, I don't know what you call them, and then you have the trolls with the water elementals all over. It's a really cool type of area. And whenever I think of Zuldrak, this is what I think of. I always think of this water poppy field and all the water elementals and the trolls farming it. And I don't know what that says about me. Like, out of everything in Zuldrak, this is what I always think of when I think of Zuldrak. So, I mean, I get it. They got to get their pain meds, right? So either way, that's why the Draxotra Fields are number 5. 4. Number 4 is Dhalsim's Farm, and Dhalsim's Farm is located in the Western Plaguelands and used to be called Dhalsim's Tears. And if you played classic World of Warcraft, I'm sure you remember this farm, because this is where you find Mrs. Dhalsim, who is a wandering skeleton, and after you read her diary, she can drop the key to the outhouse where Farmer Dhalsim is a ghoul that's trapped. Then, after the Cataclysm, the Scourge have finally been cleared from Dhalsim's Tears, which has then been renamed Dhalsim's Farm, and it's actually a pretty nice farm. And yeah, much like earlier with the Uldum farm that I mentioned, this is kind of a cool transformation, but the other way around, where instead of becoming corrupted, it was corrupted, and now it's become just like a nice, pristine, normal farm. Which is actually, I think, kind of ironic, because Cataclysm destroyed everything, right? Like, so many things got destroyed or changed, but then this is one of the places that actually got healed up from the Cataclysm. So I think that's kind of fun as well. But yeah, overall, this is a really cool farm. You see it transform over time. It's got some history, and so that's why I decided to put it at number 4. 3. Number 3 is the Saldian Farm, and Saldian's Farm is unique in Westfall in that it is the only farm that was never completely overrun by the Defias Brotherhood. However, the Defias Harvest Golems continue to roam the fields, which I'm sure you're familiar with if you've ever quested in Westfall at any point, really ever. And I mean, there's other quests here too. I mean, there's the quest where you have to cluck like a chicken. There's the Westfall Stew quest. I mean, there's a lot of quests revolving around the Saldian Farm. And I wasn't actually thinking of putting this farm that high up on the list, but the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? A lot of people quest here. A lot of people have nostalgia of Westfall and probably this specific farm, and it does have a lot of history behind it and a lot of lore. In fact, speaking of lore, during the Burning Legion's invasion of Westfall, a bunch of people were enslaved and killed by the Burning Legion, but Farmer Saldian and his wife managed to survive and hide within their home on the Saldian Farm. So, like, they survived the Burning Legion, they survived the Defias Brotherhood, like, these are the chosen farmers, man. And so anyway, that's why the Saldian's Farm is number 3. 2. Number 2 are the farms of Hallowfall, and I didn't really pick any specific Hallowfall farms because I think they're all pretty cool. They're kind of similar in a way, but it's just a really beautiful area with so much farmland. And it's kind of funny because we're underground. Like, when you think of farms and farmland, you never really think of an underground cavern. Like, man, we're going underground. I can't wait to see the farmland down there. Like, that's not really a thing that gets brought up. But to me, you could have put these farms above ground and I would still love them just as much, because I love the crops that grow here. There's vegetables, there's corn and plants and like a whole bunch of stuff. They got big windmills, there's scarecrows. Like, it's a beautiful farmland. It's all over the place, and there's quests and big area events involving the farms. It's really a great area with so much cool farmland, and I felt like I had to put it on the list. And the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? These are some really cool farms. I gotta put this high up, and so that's why the Hallowfall farms are number 1. And number 1 is the Heartland, located in the Valley of the Four Winds. And when I think of farms, this is my instant go-to. Like, I always come back to the Heartland in the Valley of the Four Winds, and according to this, it is the largest farming land in all of Pandaria. And the land is actually able to produce these large, massive crops due to the magical properties of the nearby water source, which comes from the Veil of Eternal Blossoms. And I always thought that was a really cool concept as well. Like, you have this big magical water source flowing over from the zone next to you, so you're getting these massive carrots and these massive watermelons and stuff. Like, I think that's just really fun. But what also makes it fun is when you have these massive farmlands and massive vegetables, you have massive vermin trying to eat your vegetables, and you have these big springtail vermin just all over the place trying to get at everything. And then obviously, you know, not everything is this massive vegetable farm. There's still animals like sheep and goats and yaks all around, and then there's still like standard farms and stuff like that. But overall, I think the Heartland truly is the best farm and, you know, I guess farmland in World of Warcraft. And so that's why the Heartland is number 1. 10. Number 10 is Mother Smolderweb, and Mother Smolderweb is a spider located in the lower Blackrock Spire. It's a bit of a tongue twister. And she's notable for the Smolderweb hatchling, which now you just get from getting the Smolderweb egg, and it teaches you how to summon it. But back in the day, you had to get the carrier, and then you kept it in your inventory, and it was kind of annoying. But that's not all. She's also mainly known for the Mother's Milk quest, which back in the day was quite the quest. So if you don't know, it was a quest where you had to go to this boss and poison yourself, and then go back to the quest giver, who was like outside Blackrock Mountain, and then he would, quote, milk you of the poison, and that was the quest. And pretty much nobody liked doing it. It was just really annoying. It was a dumb mechanic, and people memed it. They share it all over. Like, when you're in a battleground and you haven't done it, they'll just share that quest because they know you haven't completed it. And then after the guy milks the poison out of you, he just uses it for making beer, because he's like, what did you think I was gonna do, make poison or something? But either way, Mother Smolderweb's actually a really cool spider, and if you read the dungeon journal entry, it says centuries ago, the Dark Iron Dwarves dug into the lair of Mother Smolderweb, releasing the massive arachnid into the spire's halls. Her brood has continued to swell in number since that time, so much so that even Blackhand's forces fear traveling through Smolderweb's domain. So pretty much the dwarves were digging, and then they're like, oh shit, we went too far, and then she's just there now. But overall, a pretty cool spider, and I think a pretty well-known spider, and that's why Mother Smolderweb is number 10. 9. Number 9 is Bezaleth, and Bezaleth is an orange-brown tarantula found in the Stone Talon Mountains. And if you've played Classic WoW at all, you've probably come across Bezaleth once or twice, because I've seen quite a few people die to Bezaleth in the Deathlog. But if you're walking down the Stone Talon path, you'll see a sign that says, like, wanted or danger, there's a spider here, and you click it, and then there's an elite spider up in this spider area with, you know, all the spider webs and everything all over, and it's Bezaleth. And the reason for that sign is Magrin Earthbinder was once attacked by Bezaleth, but he escaped and placed a bounty on the spider. Outside of that, there's really no other lore. I mean, it's just some Tauren got attacked and was like, kill that spider, it tried to kill me. That's pretty much it. But I think Bezaleth is cool. I love the area that Bezaleth's actually in, with all the down trees and the spider webs all over and covering everything. I think it's pretty neat, and so that's why Bezaleth is number 9. 8. Number 8 are the green tarantula spiders, and these are the spiders that you see all over the place in the lower levels, and I think because of that, they're one of the most well-known spiders in World of Warcraft. I mean, in Hillsbrad, you see them where you have to do the Spider Ichor quest, which I've done quite a bit playing classic hardcore WoW at this point. There's in Teldrassil, they have them, in Stone Talon. I mean, they're really all over. And I included the old model and the new model, so I actually think the new model looks pretty cool, but I like the old model just for a little bit of nostalgia in there. But I like including a lot of generic creatures when I do these creature lists because, you know, they deserve love too. A lot of people are like, the named ones, right? And the named ones are pretty cool for creatures, but a lot of times I think it's cool to appreciate a lot of the just generic creatures in World of Warcraft, because a lot of people run into the generic creatures more than they run into the named creatures. And so I think there is some sort of nostalgia factor with it. And that's kind of what Pointless Top 10 is all about, giving things that wouldn't normally be in the spotlight a little time to shine. And that's why the green tarantula spiders are number 8. 7. Number 7 is Beshal, and Beshal is a tarantula located in a cave near Fallhaven in Drustvar. If you go into its cave, there is an obviously safe chest in there. That's literally what it's called. And if you open it, Beshal spawns and starts attacking you. However, that's not the only reason I put this on the list. The name Beshal is actually an anagram of Shelob, which is the monstrous spider from J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. So an actual Lord of the Rings reference here in World of Warcraft, which is always appreciated. Aside from that, Beshal is just a really big tarantula. But I like their cave a lot. I like the location of the cave. It's very aesthetically pleasing. And I thought I'd take this moment to share a little spider fact, which is bola spiders use a long line of silk ended with a spot of sticky glue, swinging it at nearby moths to catch them, much like a fishing line. So there's actually a spider that can go fishing, but I guess it's not fishing. It's more like mothing. So there you go. Spiders go mothing. And that's why Beshal is number 7. 6. Number 6 are Bethelak and her lava spiders. Now, Bethelak is the fire spider boss of the Firelands, and if you read her background in the adventure guide, it says, matriarch of the Cinderweb brood, Bethelak and her merciless offspring sate their appetites by sucking the magma and fire from the corpses of elementals. To provide her broodlings with added sustenance, Bethelak has woven a network of incendiary webs throughout her web to trap unsuspecting prey. Her fiery webs reach far overhead, daring her adversaries to simultaneously face their fears of both spiders and heights. Only by taking hold of her webs and climbing into her domain yourself will you find a way to thwart her evil designs. But in the grand scheme of things here, I think it's just awesome that she sucks the magma and fire from the corpses of elementals. So she's literally just a magma fire spider because she sucks it from the dead elemental. Like, that shit's crazy to me. That's super metal. I also relate this boss to Hotel Hell with Gordon Ramsay. I don't know why. I watched one episode, and that was the only episode I watched. It just so happened to be while I was farming mounts in Firelands, but now I always think of Firelands, and I pair it with Gordon Ramsay, which is kind of fitting, to be honest. But that's why Bethelak is number 6. 5. Number 5 are the Deathweb spiders, and these are a special breed of spiders living in Deathweb Hollow in Talador. And the reason these spiders are so crazy is because their venom twists the very form of their victims. So in Warlords of Draenor, the Shadow Council, which is a group of mortal warlocks that serve the demons of the Burning Legion, became privy to this information and dispatched its warlocks to their lair to infuse these spiders with fel energy so that their venom now turned creatures into demonic minions, which I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how that works. They're just like, what if we just give them a little fel energy and then, their victims just become demonic minions? Like, yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, it's crazy magic and, I'm acting like fel energy is this realistic thing. Like, I don't know. And the Draenei Tresia became one of their victims, being transformed into a Manari Eridar before being struck down by her former comrade. But I do really like the way these spiders look. They remind me of Infernals, but like, put over a spider in a way, which I mean makes sense. They're injected with fel energy, but I love the green in their legs, and then they just have the glowing green eyes, and then their area is really cool too with all the cobwebs, and it reminds me of Stone Talon a bit, but almost like upgraded because it's Warlords of Draenor and the graphics got better. But I think these are really cool spiders, and that's why the Deathweb spiders are number 5. 4. Number 4 are the Rivenwood Widow spiders, and these are pretty much just big black widow spiders that are in the Howling Fjord. And I don't know, I love the aesthetic of not just the area they're in, but just everything about this. So you have the Riven Widow cocoons, which are just a bunch of random mobs and creatures wiggling around in cocoons, which is always kind of creepy. You got to break them out for the quest. Just the way they walk around just nonchalantly, like, all right, just looking for our next prey. And then I think the area itself, right, with the purple mist, and you have the cobwebs on the trees, which we've had before, but I think the purple sky with the mist and everything and the pine trees in the fjord really kind of sells this for me. Like, I always loved questing here and always felt a little creepy because of that aspect to it, like the fog and the mist all around, and you've got the mountains back there, and I don't know. I really enjoy everything about these spiders, but it's not like they're a named spider or something, right? But like I mentioned earlier in the video, that's what Pointless Top 10's all about. And sometimes something that makes the list is the sum of all its parts. And that's why the Rivenwood spiders are number 4. Number 3 is Mayexna, and Mayexna, as you probably know, is the third boss of the Arachnid Quarter in Naxxramas. Mayexna is a massive spider taken from the depths of Northrend's mountains many ages ago. She was captured with the Dread Citadel Naxxramas, where she gives birth to her brood. She feasts on those foolish enough to enter the necropolis, feeding her spawn with their corpses and producing spider after spider that Kel'Thuzad uses to his own foul ends. And I really put Mayexna on this list because she's probably one of the spiders I think of most when I think of spider bosses in World of Warcraft. Like, I always just think of fighting Mayexna on that big web floor, which I think is really cool. Fighting on the web is always fun, and then she webs someone up, and you got to go break them out of the web. Mayexna is also just really cool looking to me. She's got the red and the yellow and the black all together. I think it's a nice combination. And I realize that a lot of times I'm just like, I think this thing looks cool, so that's why I put it on the list. But really, I mean, that's like any list, right? You're like, I think this thing's cool. So I may repeat myself numerous times, but I don't know, I got nothing. That's why Mayexna is number 3. Number 2 are the ice spiders in the Ice Spider Cave in Dragonflight. And this is one that I've seen shown around all over the internet, and people are like, oh god, I do not want to go into this cave ever. But I remember when I was thinking of this list, I was like, I need to put this on the list because I think it's so cool looking. Unless you're deathly afraid of spiders, in which case you're probably freaking out. But the main point of this cave is actually that Alia Sunsore, which is this blood elf girl, tries to recover an artifact so that it doesn't fall into the Sundered Flame's hands, but then she ends up getting corrupted by the artifact, and then you have to destroy it, and you end up killing her. But the book then like frees all these souls, so the artifact's like holding souls, and they're all like, yeah, we're free after you destroy it. So that's the main quest, summed up very poorly, but this cave is just truly one of the craziest spider areas in World of Warcraft at this point. But I just love the aesthetic of this place, man. Like, the spiders themselves look kind of cool. They've got like ice bone limbs or whatever, and they're hanging by their whatever it's called, spider web things that are gyrating. They're moving. I don't know what they're doing. I had to put this on the list, and I was like, you know what? This deserves to be pretty high up on the list, and that's why it's number 2. And number 1 is Taraka-Rantula. And not only is the name amazing, because it's like, you know, Terracar Forest and Tarantula mixed together, right? But Taraka-Rantula is a giant spider found at the southern part of Netherweb Ridge in Terracar Forest. Its size is comparable to Mayexna from Naxxramas. So this is literally a raid boss sized spider just chilling in a zone, you know? And obviously it is part of a quest where Vindicator Halen wants Taraka-Rantula dead. But man, it is creepy when you're going through this zone and then all of a sudden you just come across this massive tarantula. But I always remember doing the quest here where you had to free the people from the cocoons, kind of like the Rivenwood spider one. But I guess this happened in Burn Crusade, which was before the Rivenwood ones. And when I was reading the Wowhead comments on this, there is somebody that said the mob is a tip of the hat to EverQuest. There was a huge desert spider named Terrorantula that was the bane of Lobies when the game first came out. So this could be a little bit of a mix of that, right? Terrorantula, you know, maybe just a fun way to blend the zone name in with the spider and at the same time give a little tip of the hat to EverQuest, maybe. And funnily enough, you can actually tame Taraka-Rantula, but it becomes a very small spider. So you just have a mini version as a pet. But to me, this is just number 1 because of the shock factor as well, right? It's just you're flying around, you're walking around, and then all of a sudden a giant ass spider just renders in out of nowhere, and you're just like, whoa. And so that's why Taraka-Rantula is number 1. Number 10 is this house in the Stone Talon Mountains, and it's about as far northwest as you can go in the Stone Talon Mountains. It's a little bit west and north of Stone Talon Peak, more west than north, and it's just randomly out there in the open. This is a very random place for a house. It's this random troll hut, and there's just nothing else around. There's a cauldron, there's some animals hopping around, there's some trees, and that's really it. It looks like it's an abandoned hut, although the cauldron's still bubbling, so I don't know if they left the cauldron on. It's like leaving your oven on or something. Dude's gonna come back like, I left the cauldron on, not again. But realistically, this is probably where they were going to add some sort of content to the game in Stone Talon Mountains, and then they just never got to it, or it just got abandoned, and they're like, all right, whatever, just leave it there. Now it's just some random troll hut in the middle of nowhere. And I actually never knew this thing existed until this video, and maybe that's how you are too. But now, you know. And that's number 10. 9. Number 9 is a home in the Barrens above the Wailing Caverns, and this actually used to be a quest hub. I don't believe it is anymore, but Fala Sagewind is the person that lives here, and she is a Tauren just chilling up in the mountains above the Wailing Caverns, having a great view. You could look out and see everything from up here. But this used to be the quest for the Glowing Shard, and I believe this was a Horde-only quest, so Alliance people are probably like, and then Horde people are like, dude, I remember that. And fun fact, there's actually a Hunter Sagewind in Thunderbluff, so it is very likely that Fala Sagewind and Hunter Sagewind are related in some way, so that's pretty cool. But overall, this was one of those houses that always stood out to me as one of the houses in the middle of nowhere, because I remember way back in the day trying to find this place, and I was like, where am I supposed to take this? And then you realize, like, wow, you have to, like, literally climb a mountain, and you get to the top of it, and then there's just some little Tauren house. And you're like, oh, wow. And you get a nice view over the entire landscape, and you're like, dude, this is amazing. And that's why I really love that quest, is they made you go up a mountain, and then you're annoyed. You're like, oh, this sucks. This is dumb. Why do I have to do this? Then you get to the top, and you just get that scenic view, and you're like, dude, nice. And then someone says a Chuck Norris joke and ruins the immersion because it's 2005. So that's why this is number 9. 8. Number 8 is the Hayward Fishery, and this one's got some interesting lore in it, so let me read you a bit here from Wowpedia. Hayward Fishery was formerly a small single island prior to the Cataclysm. It is now a tiny archipelago off the coast of southwestern Gilneas, which houses an abandoned fishing business that was run by the Hayward brothers, Sebastian, Ron, Trent, Walt, and Tim Hayward. The brothers were trying to repair one of their ships with the help of young Gilnean adventurers so they can escape, while at the same time being attacked by Forsaken castaways. Oddly enough, despite the rest of the Duskhaven area having been sunken by the Cataclysm, the fishery is all and well, having not even been touched. Ironically, the Haywards could have stood a chance at remaining at their home rather than evacuating like the others. So this is one of those weird stories where if they would have just stayed where they were, they would have been fine, you know what I mean? But obviously hindsight's 2020. They go off, and they're probably dead now, but who knows? There's also a theory that Deathstalker Hayward is related to them, and he's a Forsaken Deathstalker located in New Agamond in the Howling Fjord. But overall, as an abandoned house, this place is also pretty cool, right? There's a bunch of fishing gear all over. There's fishing lures, fishing poles, fishing boats. It just has a cool aesthetic to it, and you know how much I love fishing, so that also played into it, but I just think this is a cool place. It's got a cool history, and that's why it's number 8. 7. Number 7 is Newman's Landing. I actually stumbled across this place when I was doing my level 1 hardcore run across the world challenge, which I'll put a link to up above, but it's a small area found on the western coast of Dunmorrow, just west of Coldridge Valley. It holds a dilapidated human building and a dock. At the building, there is alcohol, several boxes of grains, some bone piles, and a sign that says Newman's Landing. In patch 3.02, the goblin named High Admiral Shelley Jorek was added to the dock, along with 2 Booty Bay bruisers, but they were removed in Legion. Now, there's actually a lot of weird theories behind Newman's Landing, so there's a few weird things happening. One is, trying to fish at Newman's Landing used to give the air, there are no fish here, but after patch 3.09, it is possible to fish there. Originally, dying in Newman's Landing, or just north of it, would have the players reappear in Menethil Harbor. Dying south of it would cause one to respawn in Sentinel Hill in Westfall. And originally shift-clicking the name of a character standing in Newman's Landing would show them in the location Unknown. In the guild roster, the location field would be a blank space. Then, after researching a bit more, I found somebody on Reddit saying before your character is teleported to the new character starting zone, that's where the characters spawn. Back when people's internet was slower, you could see bodies spawn there for a fraction of a second before being teleported whenever someone made a new character. Thus, it was New Man's Landing, because it's somewhere where new men were spawning. But then someone else was like, no, that's a rumor. Here's a quote from Sam Lantinga, who was a original game engineer on World of Warcraft, and they said, I think that might have been the 0 point on that continent. We had a bug where if a player died when crossing a zone boundary between physical servers, that they would be loaded with a 0 position. We would quickly fix them up, but they would already be in the world at that point, and well, ghosts abound. So whatever the case may be, this house is still a pretty cool house in the middle of nowhere, and it has a ton of history, a bunch of theories and rumors, and a whole bunch of stuff, and that's why it's number 7. 6. Number 6 is this dwarf house slash farm on the eastern coast of the Arathi Highlands. This used to be a place where there was absolutely nothing. There was just a dwarf, maybe 2 dwarves, just some animals, and no quests or anything. It was just here. And so some people think it was just here for roleplay reasons, or it was supposed to be a thing and it never happened. But either way, it's just a cool little place. But now they've actually added Grimmy, and Grimmy is the quest NPC for the Waste of Time cosmetic. It's just a belt cosmetic, and it's a clock because you've wasted your time. There's like 40-something things you have to do. It really is a waste of time, but it is weird going to this place after being like, it's this calm, relaxing dwarf farm in the middle of nowhere. And now it's just this gnome skeleton that's like, hoo-hoo, greetings. In fact, he has a few quotes. He says, "Oh my, visitors, and I haven't a thing to wear. And I would treat you to a smile and a toast, but alas, I have neither skin nor ale. And don't hesitate to make yourselves at home." So Grimmy's a little weird, and he was actually added in Battle for Azeroth. So this isn't that old of an addition to the game. But I mean, I'm a sucker for Arathi Highlands. I always loved Arathi Highlands, one of my favorite zones. And so having a house in the middle of nowhere in one of my favorite zones, I was like, this one's got to be on the list, especially now with this weird ass gnome skeleton. And so that's why it's number 6. 5. Number 5 is this gnome house in the ruined reaches of Azshara, kind of near Durothar. And this one's kind of a crazy one, because Bingham Gadget Spring is here, and there's a quest that Hobart Grapplehammer sends you on to go deal with Bingham and his fellow gnomes that are a thorn in the side of the local goblins. So you go there, he sends explosive sheep at you, and all the gnomes try to fight you. It's a great time. But there's actually some crazy Gadget Spring lore. So, there used to be his mother and father in this building, Bleemo Gadget Spring and Juby Gadget Spring. And if you go into this house that Bingham Gadget Spring's in now, you'll find a purchase order receipt for a giant-sized laxative that was ordered to retrieve his father, Bleemo. So the receipt says, "Mrs. Gadget Spring, the industrial-strength laxative agent you requested is enclosed. My condolences on the fate of Mr. Bleemo Gadget Spring. I don't know why you didn't order a vomit-inducing agent. Good luck on your endeavors." So Juby, after Bleemo was eaten by a cliffwalker, decided to order a super laxative, give it to the cliffwalker, and hope the cliffwalker just popped him out. But that never happened. He was dead. We've never seen him again, and that cliffwalker probably had a terrible time. And so for all these wacky stories and all this stuff, this is number 5. 4. Number 4 is a house in Stormheim, west of the Agrimar's Vault, and it is owned by Tigrid the Charmer, that is the enchantress here, and you would have to go here for enchanting stuff back in Legion, but she probably doesn't get that much business anymore, and so it's just a random Stormheim house in the middle of nowhere. But this is a really cool house, which is why I put it so high up on the list. It's got really nice aesthetic. There's candles, there's books laying around, there's a fireplace, and just a bunch of little knickknacks here and there, and just there's just a lot of cool things all around, which is, you know, you would expect that from somebody that's really into enchanting and all that, right? You would have a bunch of magical stuff laying around, but it's just, for being this old rundown place in the mountains, for being a house in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, it's got a very cozy aesthetic to it. And so it doesn't have crazy lore like some of the other houses, but it's a very nice location. There's rams and birds all over. There's even a bird that like sits on top of the entrance to the house. It's very nice. It's charming. It's quaint. And because of that, I put it at number 4. 3. Number 3 is a cozy Tauren house up in the mountains of Mulgore and Feralus. And I guess a little bit of Thousand Needles. It's more that you can see Thousand Needles from here, not so much that's in it, but it's just something that I never knew was in the game, and it's just a great, cozy aesthetic place. Like, you got the Tauren house, you got the big totem pole, you got a canoe, you have some wind chimes, like, up in the tree, and it looks like there's a dead Kodo. I don't know if maybe he came up here and there's a Kodo and he, like, killed it, because there's arrows in the Kodo, so, I mean, something happened there, and now he's, like, decorating the Kodo. Like, I have no idea, but this dude was determined, right? This guy was like, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make my getaway house to escape from reality, go up into the mountains. He's probably gonna smoke that tarin weed that they make you smoke as part of that quest chain to get heritage armor. Just look out over the landscape and be like, man, life's good. And now we have no idea who lives here or where this tarin is or anything. It's just a random abandoned house up in the mountains, but it's fantastic. I love this place. I'm glad I found it because I never knew it existed. And it's one of those places that has no lore and yet so much lore. Damn. That's why it's number 3. 2. Number 2 are the houses in the Caverns of Time, and ever since I saw these houses in this path years ago, I knew I wanted to do something with them, right? I was like, these are just so cool, and they can be glanced over pretty easily because you're walking through the tunnels to get to the Caverns of Time, you're just like, there's some stuff all around, whatever, but I think it's so cool that you see these different types of houses just merged into the wall, or houses that you can actually walk into, and it's almost like you're going through this different time dimension. Like you're walking through a portal into a different time. And then you look up into the sky and you see another house, but with like floating rocks and stars in the background. It's just, it really makes you feel like you're walking through time. And that's what I enjoy most about these houses. Like they may not be, they may not be the coolest houses, they may not be the most aesthetic houses, but it's a variety of houses just scattered throughout the Caverns of Time entrance and making you feel like you really are walking through time. And for those reasons, I decided to put them at number 2. 1. And number 1 are the underwater gnome houses in Tanaris. And these actually have a crazy history where they were in the game way back in Alpha, and then they were moved down along the coast for the Encourage opening quest. And then after that, they kind of were just useless, and they were just sitting under the water after Cataclysm. And then as of Legion, they made these a part of the engineering quest chain. So they've changed what they are throughout history, but I think these really represent why it's so much fun to find random stuff out in the middle of nowhere, right? Like these random houses, and it's because, they've had their purposes changed over time. But the main thing is people find these and they think they found some sort of hidden treasure. And in a way they have. And I think it's really cool to explore a world, and then when you find something that you think nobody else has found, or even if you find something someone else has found, but you can figure out a different meaning for it, or you know something about it, it really just adds to the history and the fun and the richness of the world. That may sound like a bunch of fluff words, but I think you understand what I'm saying. And so that's why these are number 1. 10. Number 10 are the Enchanted Tiki Warriors, and the Enchanted Tiki Warriors are mobs found at Zolmaz Stronghold in Zoldrak. And these are quite literally floating tiki masks that carry a big spear. Well, I don't know if they're carrying it, they're kind of... Actually, I don't know how they use it. I guess their magic allows them to use the spear and be a mask. I have no idea how it works. We don't really need to know how it works. We just know that it does work. And it says here that Tiki Warriors actually use the Night Elf male animation. So for a second, I was like, hey, maybe that means they're actually invisible night elves behind these masks, you know what I mean? But after looking into it, it appears that the, quote, invisible man model used for all possessor floating weapons all use the male Night Elf animations. For example, the Unholy Weapons in Naxxramas and the Prince's Axes. But the comment that says this is from 2009, so it's possible maybe after Wrath of the Lich King they stopped doing that, but who knows, maybe they're still using the Night Elf animations to this very day. And I'm sure we could figure it out right now, but I don't got time. I got pointless top 10 lists to make, and so that's why the Enchanted Tiki Warriors are number 10. 9. Number 9 are the Enthralled Mutants, and the Enthralled Mutants are orcs that are infested and located in Gorgrond. They also appear during the invasions of the Frostwall and Lunarfall garrisons. And it appears that these weird plant people are the ones doing this. It looks like they're kind of resurrecting stuff, so I would imagine that's what's happening, but listen, this was Draenor. All I remember from Draenor is sitting in my garrison, all right? But the thing is, even though these orcs are pretty unusual, I actually think they're really cool. It looks like they have half green, half kind of pale parts of their body. They've got little growths and corrupted, I don't know what that is, feathers or roots or wings on them. And they've got green leaves and stuff growing on their beard. And then their hands look like they've dipped it in red paint or something, or it's just corrupted and it's like it's moving up their arm and taking them over. Like, it actually looks really sick. And so with all that being said, these are pretty unusual mobs. You don't normally see weird mutated plant orcs walking around every day. And really, we've only seen it in Draenor. And so that's why the Enthralled Mutants are number 9. 8. Number 8 are the wolf hawks, and the wolf hawks are large carnivorous flying mammals which, as you might have guessed from the name, resemble a wolf and a hawk joined together. So they have the body of a wolf, but they have a bunch of feathers all over, and they have the ability to fly. But the weird thing that also makes them unusual is there's not many of them in the game. The ones that I'm showing you right now are the 3 named wolf hawks. There's Kveldufnir, Mavarnir, and Varaudnir. There's no way I said all that correctly. And they live in the caves on the southern coast of the Eye of Azshara. And outside of those, the only other wolf hawks in the game are either mounts that hunters can get, or a wolf hawk that appears during the quest for the hunters to get said wolf hawk mounts. And so yeah, to me it's just unusual that we get all this wolf hawk stuff in Legion, and they're like, dude, the wolf hawks, this is what hunters are all about. You gotta ride your wolf hawk mount. There's some crazy wolf hawks out there that are named, and then we just never see any again, like ever. Like, where'd they go? Are they extinct? What happened? So that's why the wolf hawks are number 8. 7. Number 7 is Guzrug the Tiny, and Guzrug is an ogre that's located in the Ring of Trials in Nagrand, the Draenor version. And Guzrug is called Guzrug the Tiny because he is quite literally half the size of a normal ogre. If you talk to him, he says, "You won't fight in the arena? Talk with Dexel, he puts the fights together. Me, I'm just here to start the match and clean up the bodies after." And so yeah, I put him on the list because it is unusual to see an ogre that is very small in the game. I don't think there's many other ogres in the game that are his size, but in fact, funnily enough, he is the exact same size as a male night elf, which makes this our second male night elf fact of the day. I think if we get 3, we get a hat trick. So I don't know if he's actually an NPC more than he is a mob, but I guess all NPCs are technically mobs, but not all mobs are NPCs, right? It's kind of like Turtle Tortoise. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's my pointless list and I can do what I want. And so that's why Guzrug the Tiny is number 7. 6. Number 6 are the botany or the botany. I'm actually not sure. Whatever it is, it's based off of botany because it's the plant people we talked about earlier, right? You probably saw them and were like, man, they could have been on this list. Well, guess what? They are. And so the botany are a race of intelligent bark-skinned humanoids that are native to Draenor. And it says here that they are notorious for their ability to infest humanoid races and turn them into shambling slaves. So that's why we had the orcs from earlier. It all makes sense now. And I wanted to put them on the list because they give me this uncanny valley vibe. I don't know if you get it as well, but when I look at them, it just feels odd. Like they don't feel like they fit in World of Warcraft. And I don't know if that's just a me thing. Like when I think of plants and corruption and stuff, I think of quillboars, right? Like to me, quillboars should be here doing all this. But at the same time, I don't dislike these guys. They just feel a little off. They feel a little unusual, you could say, because that's the name of the video. Yeah, that's why I wanted to put them on the list, and that's why the botany are number 6. 5. Number 5 are the Bile Scourge, and the Bile Scourge are flying demons located all over Argus. And the Bile Scourge mostly feed on the corpses of victims of the Legion, but since the arrival of the Army of Light, they have also developed a taste for demon corpses as well. And so really, these guys are just like the vultures of Argus. Like they go around looking for corpses and just feasting on them. But what I think is so cool is just their design. They've got these ridges on their back and these big decaying wings, and it almost looks like there's a skull that's trapped inside of a demon bat. You see that? Like the skull is engulfed inside of the demon skin. And it kind of gives me a Zerg vibe from StarCraft. And there's actually quite a few unusual and weird mobs located all over Argus, especially some of the demons, but these were just some of the most unique ones I found. In fact, there is a pet you can get called Ear Seeker that is a Bile Scourge that you can get in the Antoran Wastes. I don't know why he's seeking out ears, but I don't want to know. And so that's why the Bile Scourge are number 5. 4. Number 4 is actually one of my favorite ones. It is the Crabby Relic Seekers located on the Isle of Dorn. And there's nothing special about these crabs from the looks of it. They're just normal crabs, but all of them are for some reason attacking these relics. They are just snipping away at the relics. They're not actually hitting them. They're like kind of far away from the relics, but they just keep attacking all these various relics all over the area, and I don't know why. There's no quests all around here, at least no quests that involve the crabs. And when I looked into it, there was no comments about these crabs. There's no, these crabs are an objective of blah, blah, blah. It's quite literally just, these are random crabs that are called relic seekers that are, I guess, trying to get these relics. And I'm like genuinely curious. This is a better plot line than Shadowlands. Why are these crabs trying to get these relics? Is it the old gods? Do they just find the relic shiny and they like shiny things, so they just start attacking them? Maybe they think shiny things are enemies? I have no idea, but I just want to know and I'm curious, and overall it's pretty unusual, and so that's why the crabby relic seekers are number 4. Number 3 are pretty much all of the mobs in Drustvar. Like, these are some extremely unusual mobs that you aren't really going to see in World of Warcraft. We have the Beastmen, which mostly resemble pigs, but there are some other animal hybrids here, and they are stitched together out of the corpses of humans and animals. And I actually talked about them in Pointless Top 10 Creepy NPCs as well, and typically I try to not use things over and over on different lists, because people will be like, oh, he already talked about this on a different list, but I thought these were unusual enough that they should make this list. And then there's also the curse-formed Ravagers, which are like the Wicker Men looking guys that look pretty unusual. In fact, there's also some curse-formed Ravager looking dogs. They're like weird Wicker Man dog creatures. I have no idea. Wicker dogs. But yeah, overall, this entire area is just filled with really unusual stuff, including some really unusual mobs. And so I had to include them all on the list. And that's why the unusual Beastmen, curse-formed Ravager, Drustvar mobs are number 3. Number 2 are the sloth skin nymphs located in Maldraxxus, and these are, I don't even think I remember these mobs. Like, obviously, because they're in Maldraxxus Shadowlands. Not many people remember much from Shadowlands or even just going back there or whatever, but these are just these weird bug creatures that are located in the, I guess it's like the mushroom swamp, because a sloth, I believe, is a swamp. I looked it up. It says a place of deep mud or mire. And it's just these really unusual bug creatures. They got little antennas that zap this little green, I don't know if it's energy or swamp juice or I don't know what acid. It's something. It always goes like, and it just dissipates after that. I don't know if this is them like getting some sort of energy inside of them out. I don't know if it just is a defense mechanism. I don't know what it is, but I haven't really seen anything like it in World of Warcraft. And they're like eating flies and they're running around with their bug kids. Like, I don't know what this place is, and I don't really want to find out, but it's pretty unusual, and so that's why the sloth skin nymphs are number 2. And number 1 are the Deep Striders, and these are without a doubt the most unusual mobs I've seen in World of Warcraft. They are these tall, very slender, deer-like beasts with extremely long legs, and they're located in the Zarlek Cavern and in the Ringing Deeps. And this Deep Strider is really cool. It's got these green and yellow glowing legs and tail, and it is a named Deep Strider called Alhaenir. There's actually a couple quests tied into this guy where you have to kill it and take its skull, but then its ghost starts attacking the town, and you have to kill all the slimes around it and get the skull out of the town. And this is all a reference to Princess Mononoke, if you've ever seen that. And if you haven't seen it, I'd suggest watching it, because it's a really good movie. But yeah, these are just really unusual mobs. Apparently, they're not even tameable by hunters due to technical issues, and they found that the extreme dimensions didn't work as a pet, which that sucks, because I would love to have one of these things as a pet. That would be pretty cool. And it also says here that Deep Striders are internally nicknamed Long Dogs. So I think that the Long Dog Deep Striders are the most unusual mob in World of Warcraft, and so that's why I put them at number 1. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this Pointless Top 10 compilation video. If you want more compilations, I'll put a couple on the screen that you can click on. I don't really know which ones I'm going to pick, but I'll pick a couple of them that you can click on. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to, or don't. It's up to you. Okay? Okay. See ya.